Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the TetraCast, RPG Site's normally monthly podcast. This time we're going to be discussing our Game of the Year nominees and decide the winners of those respective categories. So we decided to spend some time to catch our breath in a way and figure out what exactly the best of 2014 were going to be. And so to honor that, we actually have the most packed podcast we've yet to put on. We have almost the entire RPG Site crew today, if not all the main staff, to be honest. And so we got with us, first off, the main boss, Alex Donaldson.
Hello. Hello.
All right, we got you. We got David Kreinberg.
What's up?
Got him. Got Adam Vitali.
Is this the first time Alex has been on the podcast since forever?
E3.
Apart from when I was physically there at E3, yeah.
Yeah. That was the only time we put on a physical podcast. I don't know. We got that up kind of late in the day, but
that's what being 5,000 miles away does.
The time zones. It's actually
okay. Love transcends distance.
It's like
I guess.
It's like 2:30 in the morning where you're at this point, almost.
Yeah, 2:21.
Yes. So I don't know how responsive you're going to get. I'm sure things are going to wake you up when we talk about certain games.
There's a pretty good list of games, and I have whiskey, so it's all good.
Oh man, I forgot to bring my vodka.
Whiskey.
Damn, I forgot this was a drinking party, guys. Shit.
It's to keep me
Bust
awake.
it off. Pop it off. All right.
Anyway, who else?
We got Aaron Van Dyne.
Deadly silence.
That's the respect that we get here.
No, sorry.
That was the silence of her alt-tabbing back out of fucking Final Fantasy.
I thought she was mimicking Square Enix's presentation this past couple days.
Oh my gosh. I like how we're doing this immediately following that event happening. I was there. I got to witness that live, so.
I like how Simon doesn't need no introduction, just starts rambling whenever he wants.
Simon Chun is with us as well.
It's been a while.
Yes.
I'm so glad to be back on.
And finally, Elizabeth Henges.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so that is 8. And my name is Zach Reese. I'm the host. And so we got 8.
I don't get an introduction?
Oh,
you forgot Darren.
Darren McPhail. I'm sorry, man.
That's
This is when
so
there's so many
what the
people.
hell, man?
So rude.
It's okay, I'm the underdog for this one. But my RPG is going to win Game of the Year. All your other ones are going to lose. Just forewarned.
Time to wage war, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait. I should give you the proper respect because you put on some very popular videos on our RPG Site YouTube channel, and so I gotta give you the props because they've been getting a lot of views, and so I want to respect you for that. So a lot of respect.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So now that we got the introductions out of the way, we're going to go ahead and kind of get right to it because I'm sure we're going to be spending a lot of time on certain categories, some longer than others, but we wanted to make sure that we spend the respective amount of time that we need to make sure that all of our voices are heard. And so with that, let's just go ahead and move right into the first category. If I can pronounce this right, best tangential release. Tangential. Let him know. Tangentials.
Okay.
There you go.
There we go.
We're off to a great start, guys.
Best non-RPG of the year.
Yeah, so, I mean, and to be clear, when we say non-RPG, we don't mean any game, but we mean, on the site we always try to cover not only strict RPGs by the normal definition, but also the stuff that we know that we and other RPG fans enjoy, but isn't technically an RPG. Like in the past, past winners of this award have been games like Zelda. So adventure games often come into this category, and I think it's been a pretty good year.
Yes.
So everybody who's present and some people who haven't been, and quick bit of housekeeping, thank you to all the friends of the site or network partners who contributed and gave their thoughts towards this, because it isn't just the staff who've put in on this. It's from friends and other people from other network sites like the Save Continue guys have contributed into this list. We've got a list of games for each category, and I'm going to start reading out these, and then we're going to basically cull things from the list one by one until we have a winner and a couple of runners-up. So, for Tangential category, we've got the one that I think the most frequently mentioned is Danganronpa 2.
Yeah.
Also mentioned a couple of times, we have, in a similar vein, Professor Layton versus Ace Attorney.
Unexpected.
We also have, in another similar vein, from the guys at Telltale, The Wolf Among Us. We also have, and this one obviously is a bit more of a stretch in a different way, Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. Which, again, absolutely counts. We also have, in a similar vein, Fear-Driven Final Fantasy Curtain Call. And then we've got This War of Mine on PC. We've got Massive Chalice, which is early access, of course, on PC. And then rounding it out, we've got the by far and away the biggest budget of all these. Probably cost about 100 times the amount of any of the other games, which is Destiny.
Oh man, some of those
A lot of choices.
those nominees.
I have a war axe ready already.
Oh man.
So I'm going to say right off the bat, and I don't mean to be mean about it, but I don't think that Massive Chalice belongs on any final list because it is an early access game and it's not officially finished.
I would agree.
100% agree.
I got to play that a little bit and I enjoyed what I had of it, but at this point in time, it's like I'm sure game's gonna be a lot more. There's gonna be a lot more to it later, and so trying to give it an award now when it's still not complete, don't know what that vision is quite yet. Well, they got a vision, they just haven't completed it yet. It's probably not.
I think it's important to give it its dues because it is pretty damn cool. But I just that may be a game that we can revisit next year.
I guess by that same vein, we can remove Destiny from that list, right?
Oh.
was that too big of a
The
jump?
Dark Below just came.
Too big of a
Damn.
jump? You're not wrong,
Already
though.
off the fire.
No, I told you I'll bring out the war axe.
I just want to hear who's defending Destiny at this point, though, because I don't know.
I will say that the gunplay is really good, but there are a lot of things that hamper that. Just
I don't think Destiny wins this category because I personally am not. I think the amount of content they've cut from the game does it a great disservice. But I wouldn't be upset if it was in the top 3.
If for one thing, it's one of the big budget releases this year that didn't launch completely ass broken. And so that's kind of, it's like you give them that, like a tip of the hat to that because all the other big games kind of came and just blew up the doors.
That's like saying, hey, I'm going to remove pieces of it. Of course it's not going to appear broken. You're just going to make something presentable if it doesn't exist in the first place. So I will say, like, hats off to the soundtrack, the audio guys, because the sound effects, the actual music in the game is stand out. Probably one of the best this year.
You like that Paul McCartney?
I'm not a very big fan of Paul McCartney, guys. I do love the Beatles, though. So, I think the audio is definitely by far the best. Second, next to probably the gunplay, but everything else is just not so hot. So,
well, and that's the kind of thing that I was we're kind of seeing. So we got Destiny. Doesn't sound like it's going to be the winner. I think
the more important question is, rather than deciding a winner, right? We've cut Massive Chalice. Does Destiny stay or go?
I say
we've got to get this down to 3 games.
Destiny, man.
I'm gonna say right out. I love the series. I adore it, but I don't think a incremental update to Persona 4 Arena gets in this list over Destiny. And I think that should be cut 1,000 times over before Destiny. And I love fighting games. I think
it's a glorified visual novel not to downplay it on Arc System's like amazing combat system. I mean, it's fantastic, but it really is like a lot of the people that probably play the game probably Persona fans and probably play for the story portion.
Well, Aaron, you covered it. I mean, what do you think about it?
I think it was more than just an update. Like, they created all new story content for it as well as adding new characters. I mean, I guess from like an outside perspective, it might seem like one of those typical like fighter updates, but I think they added a ton of new content. But I haven't played Destiny, so I can't really compare it.
I've played both, and it's not an incremental update. There are substantial changes and new characters that, like, whenever you add a new character, it always changes the dynamic of matches.
Can you be more specific about that?
The thing is, even returning characters play fundamentally differently than they did before, and and the old characters still have their play styles in the form of shadow characters, and it's also, I'd argue, the most feature-complete game that we have in this category right now in terms of everything being there and working. It easily has the best online.
I would say it has
more
variety than most of the games in this category.
That's fair.
I just struggle to see. Okay, I mean, real talk for a second. I don't think in any universe, Danganronpa gets cut from this.
No.
No.
Really? Dangan was
No.
like the one that
Yeah.
stood out to me as like, it was a good game.
Oh, I don't think so, man.
Don't
You're
cut
not
it.
going to go there.
Dude,
No, you're
well,
not.
I am
No,
here.
you're
I had a
not.
conversation a while back. I don't think Danganronpa 2, first of all, this is hate words towards you, David. I don't think it's better than the first one.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that's
This is not going to go where we
I was
want it to
surprised.
go.
That's
you
fair.
didn't
I've seen
say
people say that.
One.
The twist also sucked worse.
I didn't play it,
um,
so don't
second-
spoil.
Second, some of the gameplay changes. I'm looking at Hangman's Gambit.
Okay, I'm not going to
was
disagree.
terrible.
That's
Why would
Okay,
you change?
Gambit sucks. I'm in
Logic
both.
Dive also sucks. Like there are changes to the gameplay, like trying to diverse the mini games even more so, and they failed in the process to do it.
I mean, the mini games are very basic. They're supposed to be unobtrusive, with the exception of Hangman's Gambit, which I don't know what Chunsoft was thinking there, but
Well, let's kind of talk about more of the weakest things then, because it sounds like Danganronpa is going to be up there. You know, it's more about competing whether it's going to be the winner or one of the runners up. Because I think that at this point we're kind of talking about more of the.
should we have had the first one in the category? Because I mean,
I
that's
think-
this year.
I think you have to make a choice. I think one of them should be.
Both of them. should
One.
win.
I'm
One.
I'm saying the
I'm pretty
second.
excited if you guys give it to two.
I'll say the second one. I'll say the second one.
No, see, the thing is, and the funny thing is, I didn't write this down in this category, and I don't know who did, because the great thing about the way we did it is the list was completely anonymous. But the dark horse for me in this category, where as soon as I saw the name of the game, I thought, shit, that is a perfect choice. That I think, to be honest, is in the top three, is this War of Mine.
It's a really, really good game. I was going to bring that up because I played it and it was pretty bone-chilling playing that game for sure.
Like, you know, it's an RPG in the most bare bones of senses, where it really, you know, it's about that embodying a character and the way it makes you feel and all that kind of stuff. But
Hey, can we back up a second? I'm actually not familiar with this game. There's a basic description of what we're talking about here?
It's basically, it takes place in, like, is it Eastern Europe or something? Or it's like
it's a survival game that takes place in a, you know, war-torn country, actually based off reality, really. And you're playing, rather than as a soldier or something like that, you play as a group of civilians, and all you're trying to do is survive in a city that's besieged, and there's wars going on, there's a war going on, all that kind of stuff. There's a lack of food, there's a lack of, you know, medicine and all the kind of supplies you need. The thing that's interesting to me is it's this look at, you know, we spend a lot of time in games playing as elite soldiers, whether that's, you know, Dragon Slayers or Space Marines or whatever. And this is about playing as, this is about seeing war from the angle of the bystanders who are simply affected by it. It's really chilling. It's really awful. It makes you feel terrible, like when you end up having to do things like steal food.
Awesome.
When you end up having to do things like steal food from other people in order to survive, and then those other people die. And it's kind of, it's your typical independent PC game in the sense that it's got, a rather basic, but I think really good-looking and effective art style.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's almost like
procedural.
water paint or something like that. It's kind of like a sketch look to it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But still based on like real life, kind of like a realistic look. But the part that I like the most is that, there's this interaction when you do things like steal from other people, they react to that. And so like there's a story going on, like where you break into somebody's house, but you're doing it stealthily. And so you don't see, like, there's this two people who are moving around the house. You can kind of see them walking about, and so you're trying to go from one room to room, opening doors as quietly as you can, trying to take stuff, and then at one point you may come across one of those two people and get into an encounter with them, and if you end up, say, killing them and leave, you come back later and you can read, like, messages that are left from that other person that's still alive that's walking around talking about how it was that person who brought her in and protected her and gave her food and all this stuff. And now she's alone. She's, trying her best to survive, but doesn't know if she can make it, and all this stuff that's going on. And you were the one who did that to her. You're the one that made her alone in that place. And it's that kind of narrative that really, strikes a chord when you're playing that type of game.
It's incredibly, incredibly effective. And also I think it's absolutely vital to note that I think, it's actually set in real events. It's set during the siege of Sarajevo during the Bosnian War, which was like 92 to 96.
That's
So it's this it's this bizarre feeling also of this stuff. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but it's this stuff of this not only happened, but it was recent.
Yeah, I have in Iowa where I live. There's actually a lot of Bosnians. A lot of them came here, and so because they had to escape from that country because of all that going on, and so I know people who had to go through that and had families who had to escape that, and so it's something to relate to.
But certainly my point is that I don't necessarily see it winning this category, because although I do think it's my favourite game on the list, the point of the tangential category is the best game that we think our audience will love. And while I think it's a fantastic game, it's not necessarily the combination of the best game on this list and the best game that I think our audience will really enjoy. But I do think it should be on the top three. Absolutely, 110%.
If you played games like Papers, Please or something like that, it's that kind of style of the really, shakes you to the core kind of game. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely check it out. It's not even that expensive. It's like $15-20 on Steam. So
I mean, can we agree to keep that at least?
I'm looking at pictures online. Are these real pictures of people?
Yeah, they actually have real. It's people that obviously they maybe hired that are actors or something.
But they're real pictures. Is what I'm
they even animate. It's kind of creepy on the pictures below. But
okay, because now I've said the piece about that.
Yeah.
Right, The Wolf Among Us. Does anybody feel particularly strongly about that? I could lose that. I don't think Telltale's output this year has been particularly. It's a shame Borderlands came out quite late, because that is quite good, but I don't think The Wolf Among Us belongs in the top three. I think.
I didn't think it was as good as the other stuff they put out.
Yeah, I'd argue it's better than The Walking Dead Season 2, but I don't think it's strong enough against the other contenders.
I agree.
Right. Well, that's a unanimous cut then on that one, so that's good. So,
we didn't talk about Professor Layton versus.
So that was the next one I was going to say. I mean, I've obviously had a bit longer. I've had much longer actually with that game to think about that game, because it came out in Europe a good 2-3 months in advance.
Yeah, that's right. People are upset for a bit.
Yep.
It's okay. We got SMT4 way before you guys did.
That is true.
Oh.
My opinion is simply. My opinion on that game is that it's.
He's dumbfounded.
It's neither a good it's merely a good Professor Layton game and a good Ace Attorney game, but it's not great at either of those things.
Yeah,
And
I
therefore,
completely agree.
I do like some of the things they did with the trials, but I mean, it's just kind of bland, I think.
however, in line with that, it would be. Oh, I don't know.
I would say it would be highly remiss to say that if you're a fan of both, like do yourself as a service to check it out, because it is a combination of two, and if I think there are a lot of gamers out there who are a fan of one series that they're not a fan of another. So if you check this out, you could you might find a newfound love for that other series.
The 50 games in each series, all of a sudden you start collecting them, you realize there's a lot of games in each series.
I mean, like my brother didn't necessarily not my brother. One of my friends didn't play Ace Attorney. He only played Layton, and he got to check out the Phoenix Wreck Center. She's like, hey, this is really cool. And so I told him to check out the first game. He played the first case in the first game, which is not long at all, and he's like, this game is freaking awesome. So
I'm not a Layton fan at all, so I was just trying to get to the trial sections the whole time.
I can definitely see that.
Well, okay, let's boil because this one seems like nobody's really clawing for this one. So quick, go around the group. Cut Professor Layton versus Ace Attorney. Yes or no?
Yeah, cut it.
Cut.
Yeah.
Cut her down.
Okay, so now we're down to one of the Danganronpas. We'd have to decide which one.
Uno.
Persona
Oh.
4.
They both came out this year, or was it just
Yeah,
one?
they
came
both
out this
did,
year.
surprisingly.
One
Early and
still
late.
had the superior voice actors, mostly because it didn't have John Youngblood.
Oh,
But hold
man.
up. So we
I've
got
only played it in Japanese, so
Yeah, they both came out this year in English.
So we've got those. We've got Destiny. We've got Persona 4. And we've got this War of Mine. Now, presuming that's 4 games, presuming we cut one of the 2 Danganronpas, we've got to figure out which. We now
I'll
need
take first
Cut
one.
Destiny mostly because
One-
it's not featured set.
I think.
I'd say cut Destiny and Persona. That's my.
Well, we only need to cut one because we just need to get down to 3, and then a winner comes out of that, and we have 2 runners up. I think Persona is the one that doesn't belong, if I'm honest.
I'd say it's between
I agree.
Destiny and Danganronpa 1.
Whoa!
what?
What?
I'd say-
what?
Because
I
we have
mean,
2
I would
Danganronpas
see-
here, and 2
I
is
wanna know why
clearly
you cut it one.
superior to
I-
1.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree to cutting Persona. It's still like on the surface, yes, it's still a fighting game, but I mean, like if we want to look more at something more RPGish, then I guess Destiny is definitely closer. To
I
that.
think, yeah, I'm with Aaron on that one, and I also think there is no way in hell that we have 2 Danganronpas on this list.
Yeah, we can
One
cut
of them.
Danganronpa
One of
No.
one of.
Well, let's save the
I'm ready for
Danganronpa.
this. 1 versus
Just cut
2,
the-
baby.
cut the
let's-
second one and leave the first one.
Let's save the Danganronpa conversation for a bit because that's going to be its own
Yeah.
conversation.
Okay, but the important, Persona. So I say cut.
I will say one thing. It's that anytime I mention the Persona series on our Twitter account, people go nuts about it. And so I can definitely say it's way more belonging in this category than Destiny or this War of Mine or those other games, just
Maybe,
because it's
maybe,
such
maybe so.
people relate to
There's
it.
a Persona game in another category. I think that'll do.
Yeah,
fairly
yeah,
well.
but that's for another time, though.
Yeah, and it's not about the series; it's about that game. And I know we had the conversation earlier, and people said, it isn't an incremental upgrade. It's got a lot of new stuff, and it does. Don't get me wrong, but it is still at its core the same game. And I don't think it trucks with the rest of the company on this list. I think Destiny is doing something new and exciting, even if it doesn't. Destiny in no way deserves to win, but I think it's doing something new and exciting and different. This War of Mine is an incredible little title.
Unique and it
I'll
stands
go
out,
with
too.
I'll go with this War of Mine over
Wait, Adam,
Destiny.
what were you going to say?
today.
All I was going to say is I actually haven't played the Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, but I played the first one, and it's in terms of like its storytelling and visual novel elements, I thought it was actually really bad. So I don't know. It improved a lot.
That's
I didn't
another
know.
thing, too. We have a lot of visual. I mean, we already had a long list of visual novels on this list anyway. And if we're gonna really base it off the visual novel merits, Dangan 1 and 2 is much better than P4A. So
that's true. We're not gonna weigh this on the fighting mechanics in Persona 4 Ultimax Arena, Ultimax, and so trying to talk about the actual story part of it, yeah, it's probably not gonna win the award on that.
Are we cutting it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, let's cut it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I actually missed the game early when I said we'd cut it down. So currently still on the list. There's one we haven't talked about at all, which I don't think will. Yeah. So we've got Danganronpa 1 and 2. We've got this War of Mine, Destiny, and Fear of Rhythm. So.
Hi, Destiny.
Yeah, bye, Destiny. Theoretically.
Yeah, Destiny. I don't know. Did anybody seriously play it?
I did. I
played a couple hours. To be honest.
I did, and I got my money back right away.
Oh man.
I mean,
you
love
returned it
Destiny to death, and even I would say Theorhythm comes leaps and bounds above Destiny.
See, I like Theater Rhythm a lot, but like
It's the same game.
it really is the same game.
It's literally the same game with more songs.
They didn't really do a lot that's different. Like they added more songs, and that's cool. And
that's
like
what you want, right?
if you were buying a version of the game, just get that one because it has all the old songs anyway from the first one. So I mean,
kind of sounds like.
Also, I have some serious issues with the way that game handles some stuff. Anyway, it's like they put so little behind unlocks, but then the unlocks they do put, the stuff they do behind unlocks.
They put a lot of really kind of, I don't know, basic things behind unlocks this time, and I don't know if that was the best decision.
I thought the first game also did that too. So,
I personally would choose Theatre of Them, but between that and Destiny. But on an objective level, and knowing how much so many people I know love Destiny and how addictive it's been for many people, and the fact that Theatre of Them Curtain Call is essentially the same game, objectively, I can't take Destiny over Theatre of Them. I can't.
Okay, I can see that.
I agree.
Did we even have Theater of Them as like a nominee last year at all? Like, I'm trying to remember.
But I think
because our nominee for last year blew Theorhythm out of the water, dude.
I was going to say nothing. This category was so easy last year because the winner was going to be A Link Between Worlds. There was no question.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think we actually did bring it up, but I think they got shot down pretty quick for Zelda. So
we all know there was only actually one game that was better than A Link Between Worlds last year, anyway.
What was that?
We're not at
Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go with something else.
the better of the 3DS games, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, Theatre of Them, yes.
Etrian Odyssey 4.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All agreed?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever gets us faster to the Dangan 1 versus 2-4.
Right.
Yeah, I
so,
think
A
it's
weak agreement.
fair.
Agreement.
I am ready to
That
wait
had already been discussed.
because our final list is Destiny, This War of Mine, and Dangan 1 or 2. So,
I think it's clear cut from this conversation that probably This War of Mine and Destiny are not going to win. So we're pretty much deciding who's going to win. Is it 1 or is it 2?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to say let's
agree.
decide between let's get rid of the excess. Which one, This War of Mine or Destiny, should be the runner-up?
well, no, we're having 2 in each category.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's why it's a
So
final.
that's going to be at the bottom
Are
of the.
runners up going to be ordered at all?
No,
No.
it's just 2 runners up.
Never do it.
So it's not like a 2 and a 3. It's just runners
Listen,
up.
if
Okay.
you're not
That's
first,
it's two,
you're-
that's 2 grand.
you're
You're
last.
God, why the hell did you have to say that?
There are no podium places. It's just the winner
Right,
and
okay.
2 runners up. So
Okay, so I have a basic idea what Danganronpa is, but I kind of know like the general idea of the games. I'm not actually sure of the differences between the two. So
There's a
Well,
big difference.
Did you ever
a lot of it is
play-
narrative elements. A lot of
Yep.
it is narrative elements.
Did you ever
I know the
play
second-
like 999 or Virtue's Last Reward
I
or
have not.
any of the Ace Attorney games? Because it's
You've never
basically
played
a
it, like,
mixture of those games. And if you've never played them, it's really hard to explain.
Yeah,
But
you can't really explain this to Adam.
Here,
Oh.
let me. Here, I
It's a
can do it
very
simply.
manic
My bad.
series.
There's a story that happens. Something happens in the story. They go to trial. You play gameplay elements in the trial trial and
Well, you,
someone
you
dies,
forgot
move
the
on, repeat,
investigation
return.
part. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
okay. You investigate, then
friends.
you go to trial, and then someone dies at the end of the trial, and then you rinse and repeat. Sorry, my bad.
It's more than that. It's way more
I was
than
trying
that.
to just
Yeah,
boil it down to
No, I
something better.
understand. It's
Yeah.
And
It's-
like make friends like Persona 4 and stuff.
Yep.
Whoa, no, whoa,
Yeah,
now.
that's-
You don't make friends in those games.
You don't make friends.
You do
no one.
not
There's
make
no
Okay,
friends.
you're
no such
right.
thing as
Right. You
friends.
don't make friends, but you think
Fake,
you're friends,
like,
but then you get betrayed and shit happens.
relationships, I guess.
So I guess we can actually categorize what we're gonna really compare in Dangan 1 and 2 probably very easily is story elements, gameplay, and probably the audio.
Location too.
How about presentation? Because I think that's a big part of the series.
Okay, all right. So I guess let's start out with. Okay, are we gonna keep the spoiler free? For the
Yeah.
most
Well,
part?
let's try to avoid it as much
Within
as possible.
reason.
Let's not talk about specific people.
Okay.
No story elements, but how about gameplay stuff? Like
Okay.
like the rebuttals in Danganronpa 2 and how awesome that was the first time you see it.
Man, this is gonna be tough.
Which parts were the
because-
rebuttals? I forget.
That's when they do the hold on, that's wrong thing. So
It's the person you're trying to explain something, and the person is like, "Wait a minute."
I actually found that part extremely tedious, mostly because within the actual time to go over the when you actually do the normal conversations within the trial, you can usually rotate back to the beginning. It sort of gives you an idea what to do, and they didn't give you they gave you a general idea of what bullets to use. In the rebuttals, it didn't. Things moved way too fast for you. There was no time to process all the
why
information.
don't you slow it
going through.
down? You got
Yeah,
to
but
slow down time.
I mean, even slowing down time, that's limited use.
Yeah.
I think for me, the cool thing about the rebuttals is that sometimes it blindsided you completely because you're going off on this one guy. You're like,
Yeah.
I know you did it. I know you did it. And then this person you thought was on your side
Yeah, so
comes
that
in
was
and
the
says,
presentation
"Wait a
thing.
minute." You're like, "Oh, what? No, I thought I had something." Oh, you're gonna completely turn it down.
Can I come in as somebody who hasn't played too many of these games and say,
Yes.
all this sounds to me, I've played a little bit of both of them just to kind of see, and all this sounds to me like what you guys are saying is that the second has the better gameplay mechanics, but maybe that people enjoyed the story aspects and other aspects of the first game.
I mean, I don't even
more.
think it's that. I think that there are fundamental flaws that rose up when they changed up the gameplay when they made the sequel.
I kind of think the opposite of what you're saying, Alex. A lot of people thought the gameplay got really downgraded in the sequel,
Oh.
while the story
That
is-
I'll say that because I hate some of that stuff, like the Heyman's Gambit and what was that surfing game?
Logic Dive, that was the
Logic
dumbest shit ever.
I hated that.
See, I had no problem with it
garbage
'cause-
in one.
I had no problem with the Logic Dive because it was very basic, very unobtrusive. I thought not.
They would
problem
sometimes
was that
do
it
it
forced
over
you
and
to
over.
play a mini game for an answer you already knew. Like, thank you
Okay.
for wasting 2 minutes of my life. when
Okay,
you
to be
could have given
fair-
me a simple text I could have read in 20 seconds max.
But that's essentially the whole game play. Like almost all of it is like that.
Except, but we'll not talk about that.
I mean, is it really like some of the bullets that you use? Like, do you like? I don't know if you can piece everything together just like that. I think the difference is most people aren't going to get the trial portions right. I'm pretty sure they'll have certain portions of figured out, but overall they won't have it figured out. With the Logic Dive, it's literally hand holding you. It's like this handicap
Multiple
they give
choice
you, so
thing,
you
yeah.
actually. For sure, I want you to know, for sure, player, that this is actually what happened.
It's just connecting
Like, it's
things. It does
double
the same thing in Phoenix Wright, like the thing where he does like the thing in his
Well, I
mind.
think that's a design flaw because it doesn't punish you. There's this meter that
It punishes you.
I will say I don't know how it plays out in this game, but in Ace Attorney 5, when he does the Sherlock style,
Yeah.
zipping through the events, you only reach that after you've gone through all of the trial and figured everything
And you
yeah,
out.
still
it's
do
the
that,
same
but
thing
these
here,
are,
though.
These are like quarter checkpoints. That's
Yeah.
the most. That's like
So
insulting.
you're
I feel
putting
like,
together
player
stuff
because,
you've learned, and
well, the
yeah.
problem is that they have this meter at the top right where if you screw up, it goes down, and once all that runs out, you restart. And
well, yeah.
granted,
So it does punish you.
right, it does punish you. Granted, that system in itself is already flawed because there is no there. You can restart. You can refill up that bar with no consequence.
Well, yeah, that's just how the
That's
Danganronpa
flawed.
games are.
The problem is that why does the Logic Dive exist When the punishment is so minimal, like I don't understand.
I do agree that they could have gone about it a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that it was used and sometimes pretty effectively because it was trying to lead you down the wrong path. And so he's like, oh yeah, no, this is what happened. Yeah, this is what happened.
Yeah, that's
not what happened at all. And it's that kind of thing where it led you to a completely wrong conclusion. And that's part of what it's punishing you. It's punishing you for not thinking a little bit outside of the box.
But the problem is it doesn't.
Think everything's so cut and dry.
Like that.
That's like I mentioned. That's the part the weakest part.
Okay. Sorry, go on, David.
Well, I'll agree that some of the multiple choices for that were stupid. It's like they kill him with a kitchen knife or a ski hockey, whatever. Some of them were just like totally out there that you're like, okay, this is the only choice. But I thought some were pretty effective. I thought the one in the final trial was really cool. And yeah, so I mean, I liked it, but it's nowhere near my favorite of the mini games.
Okay, well let's go through the people who have a strong opinion on this, and just say one or two
To cut or to keep?
To win this
To
out
win.
of these two. Out of these two, anyway.
Okay, 2.
2.
Scotty,
2.
2.
Wow.
2 left me a mess when I went through that story.
Oh,
And so
exactly.
Chapter 5, I was so impressed.
Chapter 5, even the first couple, it was like I was sitting there like, wow,
But-
that happened, and it just wrecked
Yeah.
me.
Because I heard 4 2s and 1 1, which seems pretty clear cut to me.
Yeah, I mean it's a clear cut. I mean I will say that the story in one is I think more cohesive.
I think,
yeah.
and part of the purpose this recording exists, and that we're going to release it instead of just do the article is, I think this conversation is proof of how good 1 is as well.
Oh yeah.
1 has the better location, I'll say that much, because it's more important, because it's more like it's not taking place on an island, it's taking place inside of a school, and so it's like you feel more locked in. You're
Yeah,
like,
it's more
I can't
aggressive.
go anywhere. That was
Battle
more.
Royale
But
type.
Here's the
setting.
thing: is 2 the winner out of those two?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think 2 did, like 1 there was a lot of issues, like some of the culprits were really obvious, while with 2 you never felt like you never felt like you were playing as idiots, or maybe you did a few times, but not to the same extent as 1. And the characters I thought were a lot better fleshed out, stuff like that.
But is 2 the winner out of those two?
Yes. Sorry to fanboy out.
So okay, so that leaves us with our final 3 being Destiny, This War of Mine, and Dangan 2. Now,
to the winner.
it sounds pretty clear cut to me that Dangan 2 is the winner, right?
I agree, 100%.
I agree.
Dangan 1's a great game. Dangan 2 is just a better game.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think
right.
it's a better game. I think it just has a better story.
For everyone listening to this, play
For
Danganronpa
the most
1
people,
first.
I don't even think it has a better story.
Oh,
But
well,
yeah,
close.
if you're gonna play them, you might as well play them in order. Otherwise,
You gotta play them in order, everyone. So don't let us say otherwise.
You'll lose a lot of context if you don't play the first one.
It
Yeah.
means
that's
it gets
for
better as you go along. That's
Yeah.
Yes.
And the
good.
first one is amazing as well, so play it.
sure. 2 would not be as good as
No.
if you hadn't played 1. Yeah.
So, okay, we're 1 category down.
All right, 1 hour in.
Next up, we have what's sure to be quite the conversation: best writing in an RPG this year. So we're off of the non-RPG stuff. We're moving on to the actual
Okay.
RPGs.
So the list for this is actually a bit shorter, which is better for us.
Oh, good.
The list is
Dragon Age Inquisition, right?
Return of the Horror, Danganronpa 2.
I'm the one
Oh.
that you guys can get rid of that.
Tales of Xillia 2, or Exilia, however you want to say it.
Who wrote
Shadow
that?
of Mordor, Divinity Original Sin, Dragon Age Inquisition, Disgaea 4, with that at a re-release, right?
Disgaea 4. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Wasteland 2, and Valkyria Chronicles, which obviously also a re-release. So I'll say off the bat, I don't think we should do re-releases in this category.
Yeah.
No, get rid
Yeah.
of those.
Get rid of
No.
those.
Re-releases.
Best of 2008.
This is going to be a category where I think the fight comes over what wins rather than what gets cut. I think the top 3 is already obvious.
For the record, I didn't put Tales of Exilia 2 in there. Just saying.
I put it as well because it's really the only console RPG I played this year.
Oh,
I mean, I liked Exilia too. I mean, and the story was good, and it did actually technically come out this year in English, so it
yeah.
does count.
We count.
I thought the story was good. Like, by chapter 9 or something. Then it kept growing, and it was pretty cool.
I just
Wasn't
don't
amazing.
think it carries in this company though. If I'm honest,
I agree
you know,
completely.
and
When
I want to. Sorry, go ahead.
When I was going through it, I was actually like really bored of the story until like the second or third to the last chapter, and then like kind of that climax part was somewhat interesting, but like none of the setup. There was a lot of.
Was it like Grace's F? Was it just super boring for most
It was
part?
just kind of, same old, same old. But I do think it does have some merits on that later half. There are some interesting and,
I thought there were a few very.
There were a
effective-
lot of interesting plot points that the Tales series never really treaded upon.
right.
Okay, can you guys elaborate a little bit?
I'm trying not to do spoilers.
Well, you can.
Well, most of the
Because
stuff that's interesting is really late game, so
Well,
it's
I mean,
kind of...
Yeah, I mean, without like being.
A lot of
spoilers,
it has to do with traveling to alternate universes, and it does that well. Like, it does that actually
Yeah.
better than most games out there.
Like
thing
they
is-
also
the thing is-
did something a little more, I guess, darker than what the Tales series.
Oh yeah.
There
Yes,
are some relationships between characters. There's two things I want to mention. One, like there's some relationships between characters that are a little bit more fleshed out than they are in the other games, where they just kind of talk to each other because they're in the same party. But here, there's seemed to be a little bit of a deeper level of interaction between some of the main characters. But also, what Simon was saying, there's a couple of these like alternate universes you go to, and it's on one hand these are kind of inconsequential because it's not like the real story, but you're seeing like the characters in different lights and different circumstances, and it
Or
kind
what-
of
what
shows.
could have been, would have been.
Yeah, and it kind of shows them in a different light.
And you can like
or
have
like
empathy for stuff like that. There's some real cool like themes going on there.
but I do think, but it's a little stronger on the second half than the first half in the game by far. So as a whole, I wouldn't say the game has great writing as a whole, but there's some interesting things in there.
The thing is, if somebody says to me that something takes ages to get going, and you have to get to, the 12th chapter out of 15, or you have to get
Right.
you have to get 25 hours in before it gets good. All I hear is that the first 25 hours of that game are shit. I'm not saying that's the
but
case.
I would actually say the writing isn't that. I actually didn't think it was boring. I actually think because I was sort of attached to the first game, I actually thought I thought the first game wasn't terrible. There's a lot of callbacks, and there's a lot of fleshing out of the present characters that I found interesting, and a lot of world building that you didn't really get to experience in the first game.
Here's the question: does it stick in this company?
No.
Yes or no?
No, but I do think at least it deserve, I think, merit for what it tries to do, both within the
Fair enough.
franchise and in the genre. So
I think it does more than some of the other games that we have on this list.
Okay, what do you think doesn't?
Well, let's see here.
I
How
don't-
many people actually played Wasteland 2?
Nope.
I've played it. It's good. I don't think it survived.
I haven't
Isn't that
played
early
it.
access,
It kind of like people were hyped for the Kickstarter or whatever they did, and then it just kind of vanished.
It dropped
I
out.
feel.
Yeah.
It's still in early access though, isn't it? Like it's not.
Wasteland 2, that's done.
Is it?
released.
Oh, yeah. It didn't
It sold
launch-
like 2 million units.
It's good, but I don't think it sticks on this list for writing. If I'm honest.
Can we go through the nominees again?
Well, we've now got, after we already cut to Danganronpa 2, Tales of Exilia 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, Wasteland 2, South Park: The Stick of Truth, Divinity: Original Sin, Shadow of Mordor.
I said
I
I
would
cut
say
Shadow of Mordor.
Mordor.
I don't think that. I'm based on the other games. I don't know who wrote that. I think it might be Zach, based on the other games on that list. I don't even think what it does with the Tolkien lore is that interesting. I think the way that
like
Gollum,
the story itself is not interesting, and the
I
actual
think-
dialogue is not interesting.
I think the way that Gollum pops up in it is super cliche. I'm willing to cut that.
I think the way that they introduce the different characters in the story is pretty cool, but then, yeah, I mean, if we're talking about, like, overall narrative, unless you're, like, deep into the books, then itself, you don't get the nuances
I mean,
of
the
that
problem-
stuff, so I understand.
The problem with the writing is that you could have inserted any other fantasy book.
But
And it
to
would
be
have
fair,
been-
I
it
don't
would
think
have
that's
been
the way
a
to
better
describe
point.
it.
Hold up. I'm gonna say that this game we're gonna cut it, but I will say in this game's defense, that universe invented that stuff, basically. That is the archetype. That's why it's like every other fantasy universe, because it was the first.
Sure.
And
but
it
there
goes
are
into
others
stuff that is
existed,
not in the
so-
movies. It talks about stuff that's not in the movies and stuff. It goes way better than that.
But I still don't think it survives. Does anybody else think that it does?
No.
Didn't play
It's not going to win.
It's a great game, though.
I love that game.
And the next game on the list after that is Divinity: Original Sin. How do people feel about that?
I have not played it.
Did not play it.
I played about... Adam, your brother did, but I don't think it matters. But I played about...
I did play.
Good.
All I was gonna say is I played like aspects of it, but it was like kind of without any context of the story or the writing. So
I've played it, and
can't comment on that too much.
I think really enjoyable, but again, being very mercenary about this whole thing, I don't think it lives on this list. I don't think it lives in the top 3 of this list.
I played about 20 hours of it, and I had a really good time with the main character, the two characters interacting with each other. And the dynamic was amazing. I think that it did a really good job in creating characters that you cared about, especially when you were going through some of the more important parts of the story, of the main story. But
ironically, it's better at that than some games that are given a lot of praise for it, like say BioShock Infinite.
Yes, the partners going through this type of experience. It does a much better job for sure.
But I don't think it lives on this list.
I'm not going to fight that hard for it. I will say it's a great game that people really should check out. A lot of people have checked it out and they know themselves how good it is. But yeah,
but if we cut that, this category's been quite speedy actually.
Yeah.
And
I think it's mostly because a lot of us haven't played many of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it a much more.
There's a lot of these I've played just segments of, but.
Well, this is where I think this category gets interesting. We now have left on this list Danganronpa 2, Tales of Exilia 2, Dragon Age Inquisition, and South Park: The Stick of Truth. Now,
I could go to bat
I
for
would
a few
say
of those.
Dragon Age Inquisition and South Park probably are the top 2.
I would 100% agree with that sentiment.
I'll say South Park and Danganronpa 2.
Yeah, having seen both of those, I would probably agree as well.
I would give like more merit to South Park just out of because one, it's good writing in and of itself, but it's on a whole nother level to actually make it fit within in universe in South Park.
It's so aware of what it is and so smart about it at the same time. So aware of video games and the cliches and the tropes. I think the decision to set it as a game within a game where the kids are playing is just fucking genius.
And Tangential is great.
It's it's one of those like very cliche breaks fourth walls types of writing. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do without like with good critical reception.
And even
got a lot of callbacks.
Even the silly gross out stuff, the dumb abortion clinic stuff and
the bedroom
and
bedroom.
yeah, and that kind of stuff. It's still it doesn't feel stupid, and to be honest, I think this is the winner of this category.
I 100% agree.
Dragon Age.
And I hate South Park, and I want
Dragon Age has some wonderful. I do need to give the writers on Dragon Age their dues. I'm somebody who always felt like Dragon Age was the poor cousin of the BioWare games. It was kind of it just looked a bit ass next to Mass Effect.
No Baldur's Gate, that's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the modern stuff. It just looked crappy next to Mass Effect. It always did, especially when with Dragon Age 2 they tried to mimic Mass Effect more. And with Inquisition, they really find their stride. They really find the middle ground between being Mass Effect style and being a more traditional Baldur's Gate style. And there are some absolutely lovely characters in that game. Like there's some brilliant side cast members. There's a great little dwarf scout girl who is voiced by I can almost feel Aaron's groan coming in advance. Who is voiced by Ali Hillis. And And but
to be fair, she's not bad in other games. She's just really bad in Final Fantasy 13. And
She's worse than Tales of Exilia.
No,
honestly, that little dwarf, all her job is every time you go to a new area, she shows up, she speaks to you, she's the head scout for the Inquisition, and then she tells you what this area is like and what it's about. She basically says, "Oh, this is a snow area, and there are the Venatoria here, who are a certain type of enemy, and you know what to expect." But there is so much character in her across the very few conversations you have with her throughout that game, and I think that is the perfect personification of why Dragon Age is awesome. There's also a mission in that game where they wrote a mission where all you do is go to a dance and socialize and try and gain favor in order to get people to commit troops to your army. It's so brave, but it's not as good as South Park. That's what I wanted to say.
For me, it's the reason I'm torn between Danganronpa 2 and South Park is because in Danganronpa 2, that game left a mark, and I don't think any other game had struck a chord as heavily as that did.
Are we leaving Danganronpa 2 in, even though it's tangenitals?
I think in this instance, because it hinges so heavily on the writing.
All right. In that case, I'm gonna say Danganronpa 2 I like better, but I could take South Park as well. Either
South
way.
Park is pretty damn good.
You got to keep in mind, we've still got 4 games on this list.
That's true.
I don't think South Park gets cut. I don't think Dragon Age gets cut. I don't know if anybody disagrees with either of those. But if those 2 don't get cut, that means one of Dangan and Tales has to go.
I'd say Danganronpa stays.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Tales.
Tales its due.
I would probably cut Tales.
When you're talking about the Tales series, even though Xillia 2 has some neat ideas, the battle system is what people mostly care about, and not the writing. So
the category's writing, and Danganronpa is living off of its writing. So I think it's fair to leave it here.
I completely agree, but on that same token, I do think there are some definite flaws within Dangan 2's writing.
That's the thing. That's kind of what I was kind of leading to.
But is it the better of those 2?
Yes, by far.
Then that's the answer. At that point, then you've got your winner out of those. Your winner out of those 3. I personally can't see it being anything but South Park. It's just,
I completely agree.
Especially because in writing also, we used to do voice acting stuff separately, but when we say writing now, what we really mean is the story and the entire presentation, and factoring that in also, all the voice work in South Park is exemplary. The fact that Trey and Matt spent so much time doing all of it themselves.
That's why they're so bitter now.
Well, Kevin
Spacey.
They seemed like they wanted to do it again, which when they did interviews surrounding the game, going up to launch, and I hope they do. And I just think it wins this category.
That'd be great.
I'd say South Park
is
I'll let you go. You go.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Oh well, in that case, I will go. I was going to say that playing South Park: The Stick of Truth is like playing one of the better episodes of South Park itself, and for that, I think it deserves to win for that alone, and how well it just fits within the universe. Like it could be the next episode next week, and it would work.
I could see that.
And part of it is also that, so Danganronpa 2 is about 25, 30 hours long. South Park's about a dozen, if that. And so it's what they do at that time.
There's a lot to be said, for brevity, though, as well, because South Park was a game that did not, and this may come up, I think, in other categories as well. South Park does not outstay its welcome. It doesn't talk about, it gets in, it gets out, it does what it needs to do. It's got a bare but decent number of side quests if you want to have a little bit more. But it doesn't need. It's a game that's confident enough in itself that it doesn't need to be 40 hours.
Especially with that kind of humor and satire, definitely the type of thing you don't want to, stay on for too long. So overstay its welcome, or it doesn't overstay its welcome. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, Danganronpa 2 is kind of like a roller coaster. It's got some high marks. It's got some of the chapters like, well, I guess let's get through this. But, I mean, when the game hits its high marks, it really hits it high.
Yeah,
I will say that I think South Park is better. Just as a fan of South Park, all the callbacks, things like that, I really enjoyed. I mean, but I loved Danganronpa. I'll just put that out there. But I'm
So South Park to win. Any objections?
Yeah, I got no problem with that.
None.
yeah. I'll say okay.
Just as long as Danganronpa's number 2.
There is no number 2.
Okay, I'm kidding.
It's a runner-up.
You're the first or you're last.
Okay, Zach, move us on.
All right. So coming up next is a category that is sure to be pretty highly contested. We're going to be talking about the best soundtrack of the year.
I think this was our most heated debate last year.
I think so, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah.
we had
More so than Game of the Year.
Yes.
There's gonna be some fights over this one. So in the
Steamroller.
list, we have Tales of Exilia 2 again, popping up again. There.
Man, why is it everyone voting
Who
for
the
that
fuck
game?
voted for that?
We have the Magnificent Transistor.
Ooh.
We have Dragon Age Inquisition. We have Terror Battle. We have Arno Surge. We have Tears to Tiara 2. We have Dark Souls 2. We have Persona Q. And we have Fairy Fencer F.
Oh my god.
Well, that game's on here?
Whoa. Who put that there, too? Also, what the fuck?
Hey, that Fair Rise theme is so awesome.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. Okay, she
One
pipes up at this time.
does not count me.
Wait, was Bravely Default not a nominee?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
Bravely Default was the first one I said.
It
Oh,
was the first one. It'll probably be number 1, too.
Okay.
Oh.
Be careful. Be careful how you speak there. So, I will come in off the bat and say, because I'm probably the person. Oh well, I am the person who wrote this one down. I just want to. I'm gonna throw it on the sacrificial spire or whatever. But it has a wonderful soundtrack, and it has one of the most brilliant main theme melodies I've heard in quite a while. But beyond that, Dragon Age doesn't really belong. I only really put it on the list so it could get a little bit of recognition. So I'm going to cut that now. Even
It's
though
got
it
a
was
great main theme. I'll say it's probably one of the best ones I've heard in a while.
I don't know if have you been playing it?
I did get a chance because I happened to get a copy recently. I did play a few hours, and I need to play.
There's a wonderful moment where, to use a Mass Effect analogy, where you get your Normandy, you get your
Yes.
Really,
You get your great
I
gig.
equally as like the intro scene of Oblivion. That's what I like.
You
Yeah,
mean when you first go to Skyhold?
Yeah. No. Like when you're coming out of the dungeon. Not
No.
Sky-
I mean when you first, like I say, get your Normandy, get your base that becomes your base of operations. There's a scene shortly before that where people are where the main characters sing.
Oh yeah.
And
That's
it's
good.
great. But anyway, I don't think that belongs,
Really
so
good.
I've cut it.
I just
So-
sat there and listened to it for a while, actually, when I heard that.
So what a list.
I'll say one thing. I don't think anyone else played it. Probably not. Tears to Tiara 2. It's got a very beautiful soundtrack full of piano. It's one of the more unique soundtracks, just because piano's not used that much lately.
I
it seems.
actually did listen to the soundtrack for Tears to Tiara 2 because I
Oh,
was
yeah?
thinking of because I was like, I want to play an RPG and probably not play after 10 hours. So I started listening to soundtracks, and I'm like, the art style for Tiara 2 caught my eye, so I started listening to it. And you're right, it is one of the few soundtracks that really, really use the piano. So I really actually like that. Maybe I'm just biased towards piano.
No,
But-
Zach,
it's
Zach was actually linking these songs to it a while back, and I'm a sucker for piano, so I really liked it.
It's the funny thing where the writing in Tears to Tiara 2, it's very anime. It's not that great, but then again, that game's like 80 hours long, and so trying to parse through that while getting some of the more cliche characters like super evil, super good. But the music that plays during that, some of the more important parts of that, because that game gets really dark. It's one of the best soundtracks this year. I'll say that.
I think we'll come back to the piano conversation in a few.
That's
Did,
true.
did we cut Tales of Xillia 2 yet? It does not belong on
I
this
think
list.
that one deserves to cut. I think there are a couple of tracks that are good, but for the most part, it's sort of
It's actually kind of crap.
No objections?
no.
Who voted for that anyway?
Who put that in there? That's what I'm wondering.
Let's target you.
No idea.
Xillia
Okay.
1 had much better soundtrack than 2.
I will say, looking down this list, I don't think Dark Souls 2 belongs for pretty much the same reason as Dragon Age.
I don't think there were any I don't think there were actually any
I don't know. I didn't really
standout
use
track
that.
in Dark
like,
Souls 2. Like no
yeah.
redeeming track.
I'd
It
argue the
didn't
DLC has a
really-
lot of really good songs.
It does.
Bosses.
The DLC. That's actually what I was thinking of. I mean, some of the best music in that game is a couple of the boss fights. The credits theme that plays at the end is very, very good.
Wait,
but
for the main scenario
the-
or some of the credits?
The credits for the main game, the main story.
Like, that was like the only one that's good. I guess the intro is pretty good too, but outside of those two tracks,
he seemed to, Matori kind of, Sakuraba, he kind of recycled.
You've got to keep in mind, there can only be 3 games on this list. Regardless of having nice bits here and there, same as with Dragon Age, I just don't think it belongs.
I didn't put the whole soundtrack on my playlist, so yeah, I don't think it belongs on here. If you're gonna put Dragon Age off, I'm gonna take Dark Souls 2 off.
We've already
Dark Souls 2 off before Dragon Age.
Right, we've already cut quite a bit from this list, so here's the list now as it stands: Bravely Default, Transistor, Arno Surge, Sister Tiara, Persona Q, and Terra Battle.
I think Persona Q and Bravely 2 are the
Bravely
higher.
2? That's a Bravely 2?
Sorry, Persona Q.
Yet.
Persona Q are the higher contenders for this category.
I'll put Arno Surge way up there. I'll fight for that.
Right, I'll say Persona Q. It's got a great soundtrack. It is a really, really great soundtrack, and there's another category at least that Persona Q I think stands for a lot of recognition in. But
I think,
to be honest with you, I think if you've heard one Meguro joint, you've heard it all. I love myself.
He's the Crush 40 of our generation.
I love myself a bit of Lotus Juice, but it's not. But to me, it's like it's good, but it's not doing anything that's making me say, okay, well.
I think some of Persona Q.
He doesn't do anything different than what he's already done before.
Well, actually, first of all, a lot of the tracks weren't actually Meguro. There were some other guy. I think he did the battle theme though. Don't quote me on that. But I think Persona Q's best tracks are its actual like dungeon themes. You know, when you actually
remixes too, though.
Yeah, I was getting to that. I think the dungeon tracks are the best tracks, and I think the battle track is, it's kind of typical Persona.
The battle track is awesome. It's got hip hop. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of typical Persona with just like English and hip hop and things like that.
It's English hip hop. It's the best.
Yeah,
it's good.
So it's one of those things you kind of like it or you don't like it. But it does have a lot of tracks, like when you're like exploring the different rooms, like the shop and the hallway and the things like that are kind of just borrowed from the other games. So,
yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot of recycled music, and as far as if I look at the games on this list that I can personally speak to, which is Bravely Default, Terra Battle, Transistor, and Persona Q, the one out of those 3 that doesn't belong to me is Persona Q.
Agreed.
I'd argue Terra Battle just because I haven't played it and I don't really. I know the other ones.
It's just it's only because it's a mobile game. It's only a score of about 15 tracks, but 15 bloody magnificent tracks.
They're going to keep adding them too. That's more
yeah,
downloads.
I'll have to check it out then.
It's a game where I find myself away from my iPad humming the music to that game. And that's the best compliment I can give it. It really reminds me, and of course it would because it's an Uematsu joint. It really reminds me of classic Super Nintendo era battle themes from RPGs and main themes from RPGs. And in addition to that kind of retro vibe, there's also a great 1 or 2 tracks that have these kind of otherworldly lyrics that aren't really the voice that's singing them sounds robotic. It's been through some modulation and stuff. It's really cool. It's a really, really cool soundtrack.
Well, I'm gonna have to check it out now.
For me, I really like the soundtrack, but a lot of it is like, for me, when I hear it, it's like a lot of stuff I've heard before. Because Uematsu does that. He likes to use his old music again.
Don't get me wrong, it sounds like him.
The first thing when you get the title screen, the first thing I think of is Shinra Manor, because it goes like dong.
I think that sounds nothing like that, but I don't know.
Really?
I don't know if that's me as a musician speaking and having a more deep handle on it, because I'm like, it's a different key, it's a different note, it's like a different time signature. But it absolutely sounds like him. It's like, yes, you could port the battle theme from that into into Blue Dragon or into Final Fantasy
Blue
VIII.
Dragon, the boss theme from Blue Dragon, though? I don't know.
Not
That's
Not
not
the
yeah!
Dragon.
But,
No.
It's the best part. It's the
No,
heavy
it's
metal.
not. It's also crappy vocals too.
don't diss. Yeah. Anyway,
Alright.
so Zach, talk to me about Arno Surge.
I think that if you're anything, the two companies in Japan that produce the best soundtracks, it's Falcom, Neon Falcom, and Gus. And Gus this year has produced two great soundtracks, Atelier Escalagi from earlier this year, and Arno Surge. And for the best part about Arno Surge is that it hinges so much of its music on vocals, because the whole point of the game is song magic. So obviously a lot of the other tunes are more ambience, but I think the vocal tracks in that game are some of the best video game music I've heard in years. And even up to the final battle, the music that plays during the final battle, as long as that battle takes, because there's multiple stages, not to spoil it, but multiple stages. It's a JRPG.
Yeah.
The music that plays during that whole part is jaw-dropping, because it's such an amazing song, and you're just like, whoa, this is epic. This is blowing my mind how much this game is building up this moment, and I could listen to that music for days on end and never get tired of it.
Okay,
This is a personal preference of mine. Now, I haven't heard most of the Arno Surge soundtrack, but I am not a big fan of vocals at all. So when you said that, I'm like, I kind of lost interest.
For me, it's music. It's got to work in context, but also out of context, and that's why I like Nier so much. It's because some of the music in that game is really, really good, and so putting that and Arno Surge, it's even the music that's not vocal, it's still pretty good. But for me, I think it's that the fact that if we're just talking about the music and not about the writing, because writing and Arno Surge,
we are just talking about the music.
Yeah, if we're just talking about the music,
category.
I think the soundtrack in Arno Surge is one of the best.
Well, let me ask you, if you had to lose one of those out of that and Tears to Tiara, which one would you lose?
I would say Arno.
As someone who hasn't gotten terribly far in Tears to Tiara, I've gotten about 30 hours or something, and that's not much. That's a drop in the bucket as far as that game's concerned. It's like a third of the way. I would lose Tears to Tiara any day.
Really?
Yes.
I think I think Tears to Tiara actually has a better soundtrack because it has much more diverse aid tunes.
Liz, have you played?
I haven't played either, but I did want to mention that though I've never played Arno Surge, I haven't played it yet, I still listen to that soundtrack quite often. Like, it's a very, very good soundtrack. The soundtrack to the entire series is very good.
Yes.
And it might deserve its place on the list. It may not be number one, but it's a very good soundtrack.
I don't think it's going to be number one just because I'm one of the only people that I think I might be the only one in this group that's played it. But you don't have to play that game. Just listen to the soundtrack. I mean, if you're into that, because it's Japanese vocals, so if you're into that type of music, it's way up. I don't think it's going to win. At the very least.
Okay.
At the very least, runner up.
So Tiara.
So here in this conversation, it's plain to me. I feel very strongly about Terra Battle, and there's strong feelings about Arno Surge and Tears to Tiara. Nobody's really said anything about Transistor.
Or Bravely Default.
I think Bravely Default we're saving for last because it's.
I'm saving Bravely Default for last. You saved the best for last, dude.
Right, I agree.
Well, you see, because the thing is, I could easily see Transistor being a winner in this category.
I think the sound design is much more interesting than the tracks themselves in Transistor. Like, the audio effects and the actual sound is more interesting than the actual music. Not to say the music is bad or anything.
Honestly,
Adam's had most exposure than Transistor than I am, so he can probably speak better to it. But from what I played and from the tracks I listened to, like on its own merits, like I think Transistor's just sound is good. The music is not.
One thing about Transistor's soundtrack is that I think it's very appropriate for the game, if that makes sense. Like, it fits kind of it fits, like, it's hard, I don't know if it makes any sense at the outset, but it kind of, like, fits the art style, it fits the mood, it fits the, just the whole, like, the mode of the game, it just does a lot of things really well, and, like, a couple of things, like, the main character is actually a singer in the game, the character Red, and there's actually a button that its only purpose is to have the character sing along to the tracks as she idles there. And I just think Transistor is very appropriate, its soundtrack towards that game. I think Bravely Default's music, like, if I were to listen to these games, like, on a YouTube playlist, I prefer Bravely Default, but Transistor, at how it incorporates everything, it does a very good job at it.
And I personally think that's a really important part. But, because, well, now we've heard a little bit about each one, apart from Bravely Default, which I think we can all agree is just excellent anyway.
Excellent is an understatement.
The list at this point, as it stands, is Terra Battle, Arno Surge, Tears to Tiara 2, Persona Q, and Transistor. When I hear that list, the one that sounds like it doesn't sit right is Persona.
I agree. I thought you already cut it, actually.
Yeah, I think we're kind of leading to that. I mean, the music in Persona Q, from what I've heard, is pretty good, but I would not fight for it in the top three.
This leads to the difficult part now, because that leaves our list as Terra Battle, Arno Surge, Tears to Tiara, Transistor, and Bravely Default.
I think Bravely Default and Transistor, which are the games I've played out of these, definitely deserve top 3.
Yeah, I'd say
Only
that.
one I love is Bravely Default.
I would say out of that list, it
played.
would actually be Tears to Tiara and Bravely Default.
Those two over almost anything else in the list, for sure.
I'm gonna fight for Arno Surge for days, I tell you, because that music is something else.
So, okay, I think it's pretty unanimous that Bravely Default deserves to be on the top 3. So we'll just leave that out.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the runner-ups then. So who do we?
Well, that leaves us with Transistor. That leaves us with Transistor, Arno Surge, Tears to Tiara, and Terra Battle, 2 of which have to go.
Is anyone fighting for Tears to Tiara too?
I think the problem is that Terra Battle, Arno Surge, and Tears to Tiara 2, not as many people have played. So
I think I'm the only one who's out on this podcast that is vouching for Tears, though. So
no, Zach took me some of the tracks, and I liked it.
Yeah, but Zach thinks Arno Surge is better, so that's a conflict of interest.
Well, yeah.
that's what I'm
saying.
So, if I had to choose between Arno Surge and Tears, it's because I haven't gotten to that part.
If I'm gonna choose, because Bravely Default and actually Tears to Tiara, they sort of have like the same tone in mind. So in that respect, I would actually choose Bravely Default. And I do think, for the sake of, I think Arno Surge is probably the better pick. I mean, I've listened to that soundtrack too. It's pretty standout. So
I'll say it's as far as I can see, it's probably going to be the case that one of Arno Surge or Tears to Tiara goes through, just on sheer weight of other people. And then at that point, if I'm having to pick, I'm probably going to say very, very fucking begrudgingly, yes, sacrifice Terra Battle for Transistor.
I like Terra Battles.
I really fucking
played a lot of Terra Battle.
I really do.
I think
all it is background.
We're kind of getting to the point, I think, where like all these soundtracks are good, so we're not.
That's for Terra Battle. It's that's going to come up later.
I think what it's going to. I mean, I think it's a pretty safe bet that everyone has a strong contender, but it seems like it's going to end up coming down to Arno Surge, Transistor, and Bravely probably is
for. I just want to say one last thing about Terra Battles, though, is that, once you hear those tracks a few times, I hit the mute button because I'm usually around like a loud area, and I usually just play the game, and the game itself we'll talk about later, but as good as that soundtrack is, I think that the other picks in these categories are up there, for sure.
Okay, well, so let's say we lose that then, very begrudgingly. Yep. So that leaves
Final
us
4
with Arno Surge, Tears to Tiara, and Transistor. I think there is no question that Transistor goes through, especially after Terra Battle going. So it's Arno Surge versus Tears to Tiara in my eyes.
Zach, what do you think?
I think Arno Surge is probably.
I'm pushing Arno Surge.
I would. Okay. I mean, I think Tears is better,
I think Tears is a great soundtrack. For the type of music that I love, but for Honor Surge, it's just that I can't get enough of that soundtrack at all.
And like I was kind of saying earlier, you said like Arno Surge, just in the context of the game, the soundtrack just works really well, so that might bump it up. I'm asking a question here.
It's so the ambience, that type of music, it's all right. It's not that now you're gonna really remember. It's just that there's so many there's like maybe couple dozen vocal tracks in that game because they put out 2 separate albums for that music, for the vocal only, and all that music, it's just really good. So I need to go back and play more TOCTR too, but as much as I love that music, they do tend to use some of the same tracks for some of the more dramatic moments in TOCTR. So that's kind of, but they kind of do that in Arno Surge.
The way I see this is that you and Liz speak highly of Arno Surge, and in Tears of Tiara, you like it, and from what I've heard, I like it too, but I actually haven't played the game. I've only probably listened to like 5 or 6 tracks, so I think Arno Surge is probably in our top 3 more easily.
I agree. I'm with Adam on that one.
Yeah, I decided that. Yeah, executive decision. Let's move on.
Okay,
right.
So that would leave us with that one with Arno Surge Transistor and our winner, Bravely Default, which...
I like how we decided on Bravely Default.
Which won by default, essentially.
It just walked in. I mean, you know, it was talked about a little bit last year. It is a magnificent score.
It is. I mean, the thing is, like, it's a great soundtrack. There's a ton of great music. There's a lot that if you actually see how much music is in that entire score, it is a lot of tunes. And all of them are fantastic. That's like a feat.
I agree. Bravely Default, like almost every single track is great. It's
got variety too.
It's
they use a lot of different music, yeah.
And one thing that I think I talked about this earlier, but one thing I think the game does well is, I think Simon just said this actually, is the instrumentation. Quite a variety of instruments to use. Yeah, each character actually has kind of an instrument that kind of goes with them. Like
theme song.
I was listening to it at work. Like Ring a Bell is like accordion thing, and then the strings are for, I think the strings are Adia, right?
Yes, Tiz is some sort of pan flute or something. So
yeah, all of these tracks are so brilliant, and the instrumental motif actually plays in other tunes besides like the character themes too. Like they're so conscious and aware of what instruments they're using, and not only that, they maximize it to just great effect within the game itself. Like my favorite track actually in that entire game is The Visitor, and whenever it plays it at like the most perfect moment. It is such a great soundtrack, both in and outside of the game, and it has the way the tunes are arranged. It has so many callbacks to like how old JRPG soundtracks were, like the Final Fantasy soundtracks.
Well, so let's move on, since obviously it seems like Bravely Default's the clear winner here.
I want to gush about it some more.
No, we need to move on because we're not even halfway through this.
You can do the write up for the article,
right?
Yeah, you do the work. You do the busy work.
I'll write it with you, Adam.
Exactly.
So next up we have what's in the past just been, I guess it's been more like the biggest disappointment, but now it's like the best surprise. So the best surprise.
Be a good or a bad surprise?
Biggest surprise, not
Best surprise of 2014.
Biggest surprise.
Biggest surprise. I put best. Biggest surprise.
Thank you for rephrasing that, Alex, because that matters. That
does matter because it can be a good
so
surprise.
Many surprises. We've got to choose the best surprise.
I think on this list, most of them are on the list for being good surprises. Yeah. We have put down by two separate people. Two separate people. The fact that Final Fantasy 15 is an actual thing that exists.
I like how that's our standard.
We have, three people did put it actually, not two. We have, it's popped up again, but this time it's actually relevant. We have the out of nowhere surprise port of Valkyria Chronicles to PC.
Mm-hmm.
I should have put that.
We have returning to Final Fantasy 15. Tetsuya Nomura being ejected from the project or parachuting out, depending on how you want to put it. We have Wasteland 2 being a positive and actually working and showing the crowd-funded game can not suck and actually come out on time and all those things. And then we have a bunch of things about games that perhaps we didn't expect to necessarily be good, but were. And on that list is grammar, Terror Battle, because I think I know many others certainly thought, oh God, when one of their gaming heroes, Sakaguchi, announced he was making a mobile game that was free to play, and then started talking about download starter, and you go, oh God, what has happened? But then it was all okay. We also have South Park: The Stick of Truth, which I think after the THQ disaster, everybody was fairly surprised that that ended up actually coming out and being good. We have Dragon Age Inquisition, because Dragon Age 2 wasn't very good. We have Demon Gaze. We have Persona Q. And we have Lords of the Fallen and Shadow of Mordor in the same sort of vein. So that's
Yeah.
So, man.
Cut Demon Gaze. I didn't like Demon Gaze at all, personally.
That was a surprise.
I don't even know why that's in there, to be honest.
Demon Gaze,
I think
I enjoyed, but it's
might
not
have
a
wrote that, so you can speak to that.
It's not a surprise. It's a dungeon crawler. If you love those games, you'll like Demon Gaze.
I mean, they got pretty
Not a surprise. It's a dungeon crawler.
I guess maybe that's a surprise, or maybe that it actually got localized. But
that's like a lot of RPGs. Like, wow, that got localized. Wow, that got localized.
But that is still a potential. I mean, I'm surprised that nobody actually put in the Type 0 announcement. Actually,
that didn't
I
come out.
think it was bigger good though.
I don't think that's really a surprise. More,
Didn't we already know it?
Then it's like, oh,
Well, that was announced at
I'm
E3.
getting around to it.
Here's the thing: we knew it, but that doesn't mean.
Yeah,
Right,
I know.
it, but I mean, even in the grand scheme of things, I still think it's like a little late than never. And then the whole box.
Oh, yeah. But it's not even on the list. But because is whoever wrote Demon Gaze here and want to speak to it?
I guess it's Liz?
Oh, yeah. Demon Gaze actually ended up being like a really good game. I thought it was going to be really crappy because it looked like a terrible knockoff of Atrian Odyssey with like a bunch of anime boobs everywhere, but it ended up being a very solid game. And anime boobs aside, it was like the story was alright and the gameplay was extremely solid, and I liked like breaking the game in half with like all this like imbalances, but at the same time it's probably not like the biggest surprise of the year.
Well,
So what you're saying is Zach would have really liked this game.
I beat that
Yes.
game. What are you talking about?
I'm glad you said it because
I beat that game. No, Demon Gaze. For me, it's definitely like I mentioned before. As someone who's a big fan of dungeon crawlers, it does that part well. You know, the fan service aside, it's definitely a very good dungeon crawler. Part of it is that it was also very well received in Japan when it came out. Like, it sold very well, and so obviously there was something there. Part of it is also they were using licensed
anime
stuff.
boobs.
No, of course not. It's Japan. Why would they be interested in this?
Trademark term.
But
Oh God.
it's a very good game. I would not say it's that much a surprise, but I mean, Kadokawa Games has kind of been more into the West lately, and that's a cool thing. And I think that it's great that they're willing to bring more of their games over now that they bought from software. That's kind of a surprise too, but.
Okay, but I mean, the gist
My
of it is,
my feelings on the games. My feelings on the game aside, like I don't think it stands in competition with some of these other nominees.
Okay,
So yeah,
that's done. I think Wasteland 2 deserves a lot of credit for not only the crowdfunding thing, but also showing that genre can still work, that subgenre within the RPG genre. But I don't think it belongs on the list.
Well, if we're talking about like launching on time, Shadowrun did that, so it's not like it's that crazy.
Yeah. I mean, fuck, the Ouya did that.
Yeah.
Another one that I kind of want to get rid of is like Persona Q. I don't really understand how that's a surprise.
It's Etrian Odyssey people.
Etrian Odyssey style Persona, I guess.
It's a good game. You know you're gonna like it if you like Persona.
Really? I thought the game was gonna be crap, but to be fair,
don't.
in comparison to the others, I don't think it stands out either. So
No,
I'm a fan of Persona Q. I liked it a lot, but I just don't see how it's like really that big of a surprise.
I think
on the same line, I think we can cut Dragon Age, because although Dragon Age 2 did suck, I didn't write this one. Well, it didn't suck, but Dragon Age 2 wasn't what people wanted. what a lot of people wanted. Dragon Age 2 was a good game that just wasn't the right game for what that game needed to be, I suppose. But I think for the 2 years up till that game's release, every time they opened their mouths, they said the right thing. So though it was good and that was a surprise in comparison to 2, it wasn't a surprise in comparison to every sign that led up to that game's release.
Yeah.
I think for me also Terror Battle, because it's Sakaguchi. He's going to deliver something that you're going to enjoy.
I think we can lose that.
Well, how was Party Wave? That was Sakaguchi.
Yeah, but apparently it was really bad.
I think
in RPGs.
Okay, I understand.
I think we can lose that. Okay, well, I think one of these Final Fantasy 15 things remains, either the Nomura thing or the fact that it exists.
The fact that it
exists.
Why is it the fact that it exists a surprise?
That's
not.
That's kind of.
The exist one should be it.
Yeah, I like the Nomura one better.
Even though it quote unquote exists, like the way Square keeps trotting it out, just like they're trying to make the game survive on like this almost vaporous type.
Project for 10 years. That's
it's
a shock.
cheeky thing to award something like that.
Anniversary.
And it's still not like they still don't have a release window or anything. We don't know like when it's coming out. It's definitely not coming out next year. Maybe in 2016.
Out of the two Final Fantasy 15 things,
it's
out
probably.
Out of the two Final Fantasy 15 nominations, I think the Nomura leaving is more surprising than the fact that the game is still around.
I would say yes.
I would say that is more surprising, mostly because this was Nomura's baby. Like
this is his his Final Fantasy, and now it's not.
I mean, we're not talking about Last Guardian here. This is something that we've known exists.
And Tabata's, he just kind of came in only recently, and to have him take over, it's like, oh, okay.
I mean, I think given its track record ever since like its name change from Versus 13 to 15 is a huge surprise because I mean I had this argument in like a form like the meaning has a lot to do with it. The reason why it was called Versus 13 was because it was designed and like in its core and its philosophy it was supposed to be in contrast to the main Final Fantasy games. Now it's sort of not.
It is. It's Kingdom Hearts.
The director change and everything. Like this is an entirely game than what was originally envisioned for this game. This is like there's no way this is what we initially were hyped and excited about. Like this is a completely different game.
But that was a 2013 announcement.
Yeah, we can't.
So I mean, I think I would be inclined to agree with Aaron in that I think that perhaps the actual thing. Comment doesn't belong, but I think the Nomura thing was a genuine out of nowhere.
Did anyone predict that like the project would exist and Nomura would be kicked off of it? It's just I don't think anyone.
Well, that was.
You're being cute if you think that like it exists. Isn't that a surprise? Right. No, it's of course it exists.
They're not going to can it after they name it Final Fantasy 15. That's dumb.
No, they can't. We're going to make 16 instead.
I also think we can cut South Park from this list because I think that
there's so much.
I think that again, it's the same situation as Dragon Age, where as many troubles as that game went through with the THQ problems, with the delays.
I mean, Parker and Stone were always involved.
There was good exposure.
The trailers.
That game never looked never sounded not good from what they were saying.
Yeah.
So we're down to 3 now, right?
What do we have? I'd love to.
We had games too, though.
If I was keeping track right, we have the Valkyria Chronicles PC announcement, the Nomura leaving Final Fantasy 15 project, and then also Lords of Shadows general reception.
Lord of Shadows? It's Lords of the Fallen. You just combine Shadow Mordor and Lords of the Fallen.
Yeah, I'm mixing 2 games together.
I think for me it's Shadow Mordor. As good as it is, it's Lord of the Rings. People are going to be. It's got that foundation to it. It's not that big a surprise. I will say the mechanics in that game are great.
I mean, I'm not vouching for this, but like, when have you ever played a Lord of the Rings game that was actually good? Let alone competent.
War of the North, Return of the King.
War of the North was okay.
That was competent, not best.
What was that fucking...
Return of the King was really good.
What was that Final Fantasy rip-off?
Oh,
No, that was
Out of
The Third Age.
Third Age.
The Third Age,
Third
yeah.
Age.
That's a good game.
Yeah, it was. I liked that game quite a bit.
Shadow of Mordor. One comparison or analogy I hear made often is it's kind of like the Arkham Asylum of
It is.
Lord of the Rings.
That's because they use the combat, but it's got way more.
Not just the
Mike,
combat.
That game began life as a Batman game.
Yeah,
Well,
that's true.
I mean, not just the combat. It's just kind of like I don't think people expected it to be as good as it is. Like it's just a licensed product from the the Fear studio. It's just going to be an average game, but it turns out
that's true. I mean, it started the whole thing like, whoa, these licensed games can be good. Shadow Mordor.
I want to back up for a second and say, if the list is Valkyria Chronicles to PC and Nomura departing and not dying, just leaving the project, and
sad to see him go.
Might as well be.
And then you've got, jeez,
Oh,
and then you've got Lords of the Fallen and Shadow of Mordor.
I'll cut the game.
I personally would cut Lords of the Fallen and Shadow of Mordor and
just have one runner up.
No, and resurrect the Terra Battle one because although I agree with the point of it's Sakaguchi, you knew he was going to do good roughly. I think that
Still the type of game.
Well,
that
yeah, I
people
mean,
had
when
expectations
the
for.
game got announced, people were
yeah,
like,
it was the fact that it was a free to play and the fact that it was download
this is
starter
gonna be
and
so
mobile.
bad, and it's why is he wasting
People
his
have preconceived
time
notions about the genre.
I mean, if anything, I would actually vote for that as the top choice because, it turned out to actually be something substantial and not like your typical cash-in mobile game.
I think between that and Nomura, one.
I think
But to be fair though, it's not what we really wanted.
Well, I haven't played Terra Battle, but just from the general commentary,
it's hard to explain.
No, just from the general commentary I hear about it, it's like everyone is really positive about a mobile game, a free-to-play game. I guess outside of something like Hearthstone, it just like it seems like this one game.
I think
that game has weight to it in terms of like the viability of these types of games on mobile devices and this style of.
I mean, to be fair, the game's writing is bad. Like I can't stand writing that game.
Fuck
it's
you,
bad.
man. Are you serious? No.
No, I go through like, well, whatever. Skip.
I just think it's boring, not bad. I'm sorry, Alex.
I would be inclined to agree with that. I never said it wasn't boring. I said it wasn't bad.
All right, I'm cool with that then.
It's the monsters. What, the monsters over there? Yeah, the monsters over there.
But it's a fucking free-to-play mobile game.
Lizard Man.
Yeah, you gotta have different standards for this kind of thing.
Like the lizard men are running the circle. Really? They're running the circle? There's like quotation marks everywhere. I don't know. Anyway, that's why it's not in best writing. So.
As Alex said, fuck you.
I want you to know.
Hey, I play that game all the time, so I'm not saying it's the best bad. Well, so okay, so what we're talking. Let's cut Shadow of Mordor. Let's cut Lord of the Fallen. I will say Lord of the Fallen was a pleasant surprise, and I think it's a really really good game for a company that's never made an RPG before.
You were pretty big on it from E3 even like 2 years ago on it.
Yeah.
So.
That was one of
it was a surprise back
then. Talked about most during that podcast, actually.
To be fair, it wasn't. Well, I already talked about how big of a surprise. I've been talking about the biggest. I think it's done to death, so I won't put Lords of the Fallen again.
So I mean, if we have come back down to that, then and we've resurrected Terra Battle for that leaves you with the Valkyria, Nomura, and Terra Battle, and those
I think Valkyria Chronicles coming out for the we were.
I would actually get rid of that. It's like, okay, here's this 5-year-old port. Have fun.
No.
To be in the top 3. It's like this is a surprise. Did anyone expect Valkyria Chronicles just to come back randomly and be from?
I don't know, but Sega's been putting out a lot of.
No, they have not.
No, you have to understand the history of this franchise, and you have to understand Sega itself. Put the combination two together and be like, would this ever happen? Because this is a marriage made in hell. Is that
I think it did come out of nowhere, and it was a shock. But at the same time, Sega has been doubling down on the PC and weird PC ports of Dreamcast games and all sorts of stuff for quite a while.
Sega's definitely delved into its back category and redistributing its old titles.
I feel like here's my stance on all of it. I feel like the Valkyria Chronicles. I feel like all 3 of these belong on the list, but I feel like for me, 2 of them have a good reason to not win, which is the Valkyria Chronicles one, is that Sega has been on it with PC for quite a while and has been committed to porting games to PC and making the PC into a much more viable business for them, in large part thanks to the success of Football Manager and Total War. Those games have convinced them that the PC is
It's funny how the Football Manager guys are the ones that ported Valkyria Chronicles, by the way.
Yeah,
I think it's actually the Vita guys.
Well, they're a great team, the creators, those guys. But yeah, so you've got that, and then for Nomura, it was a shock that he left or walked the plank or got booted
on his own project.
However, at the same time, it's not a surprise because it's been 10 years and there's no game. There was no game to show for it.
I'll say a couple things. The whole Nomura, I mean, he's got another project to go to. It's not like he's just suddenly stopped and working on something mysterious. It's like, well, yeah, it's because he's there. It seemed weird that he had two huge pillar games for Square Enix that he was working on. At some point, he was going to move on.
Although apparently he's not doing a whole lot on Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, until he gets booted from that project, man.
Yeah, but I'll say for Valkyria Chronicles, it's that Sega has not treated the back catalog good at all. I don't know where you get that. It's just Sonic. They haven't treated Skies of Arcadia, Shenmue, Panzer,
maybe not
all these.
Yeah, but also those are games that are older and more difficult to port.
So is, but you're talking about a PlayStation.
This is an early PS3
PlayStation
game.
3, a game that no one saw coming because no one talked about it here. The whole idea of that going from the PlayStation 3 all this many years ago.
I repeat a little bit of what Aaron's argument was earlier regarding the Terror Battle thing, which is that, you know, when that game was announced, I can't think of a single person that went, yeah! Everybody was like, oh, fuck. Everybody was absolutely.
It was like Sakaguchi.
And now you will struggle to find somebody to say a bad word about that game.
For me, as someone who's a fan, as a fan of Terror Battle, it's like I was like, it's stamina, but you know, Sakaguchi wouldn't be so into this project if he didn't believe in some of it, and so
I think you were more optimistic than most.
Trusted him. I trusted Sakaguchi to at least do something about that because he talked. He was upfront about it. You know, he didn't like hide it, like, oh, the stamina. But don't worry. That's the kind of thing he was living. It's like, don't worry. We're not going. We know the mistakes that were made in this in the past, but we're going to do something about it. And the stamina part never comes into play when you're playing Terror Battle because you always have enough energy to pretty much do. You could spend hours with that game and it never messes you up.
Okay, we need to talk about winner out of these three. I do think it's Terror Battle, despite the fact that it got cut and came back. I think the fact that it did is proof.
I don't think Terror Battle.
I don't think Terror Battle. I think Valkyria Chronicles coming back 5 years later.
I think Nomura should be the winner of this one. Honestly,
so split.
Liz, what do you think?
I mean, the Valkyria Chronicles one was a big surprise to me. Like, I think that one's the win just because it came out of nowhere, and a lot more people get to experience what is essentially like one of the biggest classics of last generation. So, I mean, that was like a big shocker, and it wasn't overly expensive, like $40. That's shocking too.
Yeah, that's not Type 0 being $60.
I'm actually going to throw in my 10 cents here.
I'm surprised we have to think it's a surprise that it wasn't going to be full price. What age do we fucking live in? This is bullshit.
We live in the age where you're expected to pay
people
$17 for a copy of Final Fantasy VII.
Back on your whole hating re-releases, you know that Final Fantasy X HD thing is like $50, right?
Why is it $50?
$50.
Current gen premium.
Let's not go down this path.
You're paying $1. Wait, what?
Let's not go. Let's save that for another time.
FPS above 30.
What you need is a crossfade.
Simon, we've been talking for 2 hours. We'll move on.
To just fade him down. So
I'm gonna
kick him from the call.
Anyway,
if it's between Valkyria and Terror Battle, I'm going to say Terror Battle. If it's between those two.
Darren, what do you say?
It has to be Valkyria Chronicles. It literally came out of nowhere and Sega has shown such little support for Valkyria Chronicles in the West that who would ever expect it to, let alone come out in the West or be announced at all. And it's actually a really good port.
You can go all the way to like 8K and the resolution. They shot because there's been so many bad ports to PC from Japan Japanese games, Deadly Premonition, Dark Souls, all these games. 13. And you got a company, they chose, obviously, as Alex said, it has to do with the competence of the people doing the port job, and they chose a really good company to do it. But, not only to port a game that you thought was dead in the water in the series, but also show that, this could lead to a lot more. And that's wow, really?
You could even argue the sales for that port are even a surprise, because it sold relatively well.
Assassin's Creed.
It was on the top sellers for quite some time.
Yeah. That's the next big surprise. It was a top seller on Steam. You never expected
Moving
that.
on, Adam, what's your vote?
Well, this might be a little bit of a cop-out, but I think the Valkyria Chronicles port is a bigger surprise, in terms of just the fact that this is something no one expected at all. Whereas Terra Battle, there might be some people who were, optimistic in it, but it's a more significant surprise just because of, I guess, the general reception it has now and what it can mean for the just RPG-type games on the platform in that style, I guess.
Yes. Anything you see that's good about my choice, I'll agree with. But that's all these points. It's a shocker. It's a surprise. It's a very wonderful surprise.
So what did the votes count off to?
I think Valkyria Chronicles wins.
Wait,
because it's Darren, Adam,
was
Liz,
it actually 5-3?
It's 5
It was
to
me.
1 to 1.
It was me, Aaron, and who else was?
I'm
David.
Alex and Aaron had one. David had one, and then it was the rest.
Okay.
There you go. I think your motherfuckers are wrong, but there you go.
Well, we have 2 runner-ups, though. I had it.
Wait.
I can.
So who is all supporting the Valkyria Chronicles one? Because
What about
really
we say
decided
next year? Next year, the big surprise is going to be Terra Battle on consoles. Let's see how that looks like, because that's coming all right. We'll see how that goes.
We'll talk about that, I'm sure.
No, back up. So I might have sounded like that I was supporting Valkyria Chronicles, but I didn't really decide on that.
Oh, come on.
Sorry.
Seriously?
Don't count your chickens before they hatch, bro.
We still got more votes for Valkyria. It's 4 to 1 to 1 to 1 anyway. It doesn't. No matter what.
Whoa! No! We can't let Adam abstain.
Unless David agrees with Alex and Aaron and David and Adam all say the same exact thing, they're not going to win.
Well, I said Terra Battle, so.
Yeah,
you said no more.
I said no more at first, but if it's between
4 and 4, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. It's pretty much. It's not going to be Nomura, right? So let's go around the group now. Terra or Valkyria?
Valkyria.
I say Terra.
Valkyria Chronicles.
Valkyria.
100%.
I think I'm going to say Terra Battle. I know that was a wishy-washy answer before.
God damn it!
So
Gucci paid you off.
So it's a tie.
Sakaguchi is going to make a good RPG. You don't have to worry about that, no matter what.
I think it's
like a mobile game. It's got all the hooks. The best part of that game is the art and the music. Of course, it's going to be good because you got the talent.
Let Adam talk.
I was just going to say, I think Terra Battle is a more significant surprise.
How?
Because it has more. It's more than I think. Terra Battle's success is more about. Have
you played Terra Battle?
I have not.
Talk, man.
But I think the success that Terra Battle has found is more than just about the single game that is Terra Battle. I think it has more to do with just RPGs or RPG style games in a free to play type of model on a mobile platform. I think that's a more significant surprise than just one game that going on PC, despite how unexpected that was.
I'll say one thing. There are good RPGs on mobile. Like there's Zenonia, the series, Chaos Games. Those games are really good.
Yeah, but quite like this because they're just normal RPGs packaged up and put on mobile. Chaos Rings is when it comes down to it, no different than the iOS port of Final Fantasy 3 or 4 or whatever. Terra Battle is actually built for the platform and around the platform in a really clever, brilliant way.
I don't think Terra Battle is substantial enough to be that significant a surprise. It's like I said, you're talking Mistwalker, making an RPG. Like I would be surprised if it was a bad game.
So do we give it to both, or what do we do?
I'll settle for that concession.
Do we actually have Alex come over to the States and we actually duke this out like Fight Club?
I'll fight to the end for Valkyria because
I will always fight for
all
Gallia.
the games. of all the games, Valkyria Chronicles, like, what a crazy thing, because Sega has other games they could have, done that with in the past. They could have done it to one of their sports games, but Valkyria Chronicles, of all the titles,
that release
and
was
did
the
a great job
definition
with the
of a
port.
stealth release.
And it came out like a week or two after. Like, come on, like, whoa! And it was they were talking about like a petition.
Yeah, but back up a second. So I'm gonna throw some dirt here. How about if that Valkyria Chronicles is such a shock? Let's talk about the equally sudden and equally immediate turnaround on the PC port of Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 13 port was really shoddy and shitty, and the Valkyria Chronicles one actually has customizable features on it. So.
Well, 13,
because Square doesn't know how to tie their shoelaces. That's irrelevant to
okay, all right.
Didn't they announce that?
All right, that was.
Didn't they announce their cloud platform, and that was coming to that already? So it was already like, well, it's kind of already going to exist.
That was a leak, right? But the point is the same. Within
Shinra Tech, that's the next big surprise. No one talked about Shinra Tech.
See, I do feel this argument about Terra Battle is it's a bigger surprise because it represents a potential marker for the.
I hope not, because I don't want them to keep making those games
for the entire Japanese industry. If you think that Square hasn't looked at that game and gone, "Oh shit," you are so
report another Final Fantasy VII to iOS.
No. They're looking at that game and they're saying the opposite. That's the point. That's why the game is significant. They're looking at that game and saying, "Oh, just porting or redoing the stuff we've always done isn't necessarily the same." They went and made a smart game where they make use of the uniqueness of the interface, where it's all built around touch in a very specific way, and it's paid off for them.
But this is Square. Why would they care? They're still going to make money off of already done versions of games.
They've already announced
the profit
more
margin
games
is so
like
much
that.
larger. For Square Enix, the profit margin is much larger for them to port games.
If they didn't care, they wouldn't have spent a grossly large amount of money on building an entire new structure for the company in which there is a focus on trying to create new experiences, just like Terra Battle. And it's not
that's just marketing jargon. Like they say that every year.
No, that's not marketing jargon.
The mobile division. That's like the point. That's why Square sucks.
It's not marketing jargon. It's facts.
It's not marketing. It's for shareholders who they have to be honest to because shareholders own them.
Okay, fine. They're increasing their mobile vision. They're making it more creative. That's something they've done every year. Like, why is that news?
They have a huge browser games and mobile games in Japan.
My point is it's not really about Square. It's about the point that Terra Battle does something successful.
Right.
I think
it's the market in the mobile industry. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that argument.
I just think that my personal standpoint is that, well, it wasn't going to be shit, so it's not going to be that big a surprise. I just think that the come out of nowhere port is of all things to port a game that everyone thought was dead here is my standpoint. I mean, Terra Battle, like I said, it was at least going to be above average at the very least, because everything they talked about that game right at the forefront, you're like, well, it's kind of cool.
Are you fucking kidding me? You were telling me when they said free to play, and they were talking about download start, which isn't even a word. You were like, oh, this is going to be good, because I looked at it and I thought this is going to be a fucking car crash. That's my point.
I think that at least it was going to be decent. I already knew that from the very beginning.
Your standards are low if you actually think that, though. Like,
it's Mistwalker. I mean, come on.
Regardless of the pedigree you have, the state of the mobile gaming industry.
Simon, which one are you voting for now? You sound like you're going to Terra Battle now.
Listen, I'm not saying Terra Battle isn't a surprise. It being good is a surprise. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Valkyria Chronicles is a bigger surprise. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that Terra Battle actually being good is not a surprise. That's what I'm saying. The mobile gaming industry is an absolute shit, and the fact that Terra Battle is actually good, that's awesome. And that
sounds like you're switching sides.
And to me, I just feel like that is a smidgen, only a tiny bit, but a smidgen more significant than a port of an admittedly very good game coming out of nowhere.
I agree.
Could this port symbolize the resurgence of the series in the West, or
If
just
it
interest
did.
in general?
And the catalog, it's like, well, they'll buy this for Valkyria Chronicles. That means we should invest more in the catalog that people actually care about, like Shenmue, like Panzer.
We don't even know if it sold.
What?
Yeah, we do.
It sold very well. It was on the top, it was number one.
It was beating out Black
100,000 or
Ops at one
something.
point.
It was beating Black Ops, beating Assassin's Creed. It was number one. Like, how can you get to number one in the busiest month of the year in video games?
Well, yeah, I suppose, and they did put out that thing saying they broke all expectations, I suppose. But that doesn't mean the game's going to get a sequel.
You sound so
But it's
bitter.
a surprise.
That's the whole point. Yeah.
But Alex, by the same token, you can also say that we don't really know that that Terra Battle is gonna really leave a landmark on the mobile industry, like mobile gaming industry.
Well, I think it's also like a disappointment because they haven't Terra Battle hasn't launched in a lot of places, and so I think for people it's like a surprise.
That doesn't matter.
They also
That's irrelevant. Regardless of where it releases, that doesn't matter. The game is good. Like, you can't deny that. That's not the point I'm making.
Yeah, but that's going to come up later. The whole surprise part of it is I can understand. I'm not saying Terra Battle shouldn't be in the top two. I'm just saying Valkyria Chronicles is number one.
I mean, either side are going to back down. Just give it to both. Like,
I don't want to cop out.
I mean, it's not a. I mean, unless you have a tiebreaker idea.
Well, okay. Has anybody
Play Smash for it.
Has anybody on throughout the course of this conversation had the inkling, whether this is the people who have been more quiet or the people who have been more vocal, that they would, based on what they've heard, change their vote?
No.
Not really.
I think the thing that kind of settled it for me was that Valkyria Chronicles is just a port, whereas Terra Battle is a new game that, no one knew about before it actually released, type of thing. If they announced like Valkyria Chronicles 4 for PC, then that's different.
That's totally.
I think
that can lead to that.
The point we're making is that the game even though it exists, it was a franchise that wasn't supported for a long time. Sega is doing something very unorthodox with that franchise. The port is actually competent, and more so, it actually has a lot of customizable features that you wouldn't find normally in
a lot of love. Agree with that. We're talking about just slight margins here, so
But again, it's like this thing of, I don't feel like that's shocking because Sega's been doing that for ages. This is a company that ported Space Channel 5 to PC. This is a company that ported Out of Nowhere House of the Dead Overkill to PC. That was another one where it was ported by a British team, exactly the same as Valkyria Chronicles. Out of Nowhere was announced and released on the same day.
I think that's a different situation, though.
Sega
they've been doing those Dreamcast games for years.
Well, House of the Dead Overkill is an all-new game.
Yeah, but they did the Dreamcast collection to like the Xbox and the 360 with Space Channel as well, didn't they? Like that's kind of been around where they were porting it around, but
yeah, but
they were talking about
the point is they have a track record of it. Whereas all I'm saying with Terra Battle is it's a different type of surprise, obviously. But all I'm saying with that game is, like I say, when that game was announced, you couldn't find a positive reaction. You went on NeoGAF or wherever, and people were, sobbing and saying, this is bullshit, and saying, where is Cryon?
I would argue they're still that way.
You can't make that argument because you're comparing a game that was already released to a game that hasn't been released. Of course you're going to see good positive reaction for a game that was positively received a couple of years ago. You can't compare that with a game that wasn't released.
Alex's argument was that it was a different type of surprise, not...
I would argue that people are still bent out of shape, the fact that it's a mobile game, and if that leads to more mobile games, I think you're going to see...
Let me tell you something. The people who are still bent out of shape that it's a mobile game haven't fucking played it. That's the problem.
And they probably forgot about it and that it even exists.
Because I think the people that the vast majority anyway, of people that have played it have come around to it.
I will say it's a really good game. I just think that a port of a classic RPG is it's unheard of because it's a game that no one.
For me, I'm reluctant to throw around the word classic about a game that isn't even 10 years old.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say okay. Let's put the word classic aside. A game that had no chance in hell of ever seeing life in the West again after the PSP Valkyria Chronicles 2 bombing here.
I mean, it's almost as surprising as like Cold Step Saga being ported to the PC. Like that's
that's a good callback right there. That's good. Totally, and I agree. Like, or Phantasy Star Online 2 suddenly coming out like tomorrow. It's that kind of thing. It's like, whoa, what?
No, I mean that's different though.
That would be crazy, though, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's obviously we're talking about totally different types of surprises here, so it's kind of hard to narrow it down exactly which one left a bigger mark. I mean, for potential for the future, it's like which direction are we going? More Square Enix investing more in mobile? It's like,
Well, it's not about Square Enix.
I know. Obviously, I'm sorry. As far as like Miss Walker creating a great mobile game, it's like this is how you can make it, and it's like, oh cool. That's you are competent enough to make a game that doesn't harass you all the time, or do you look at a port of a game that it's the last game you would think that after all the talk about Shenmue and Skies of Arcadia and stuff like that they went to Valkyria Chronicles that was dead in the water on a platform.
Yeah, but, okay, here's why they went to Valkyria Chronicles. It's a war game, and they know they do well with the PC audience. It was relatively recent, and therefore it didn't need much work doing in an update sense. It just needed to actually be made to work. And
I mean, by that same argument, you can say there's a lot of people on this on the mobile platform. There's a lot of people who use phones, and they're looking for games like. All these are all arbitrary details. Like same thing for what you're saying. Like, well, Sega's been releasing all these ports. You can also say for the same fact for Miss Walker have been known to have a good track record for making good games. Like, that's just.
I think
arbitrary details. That's all we're doing.
We can talk about that because Miss Walker put out 2 mobile games. They both sucked. And the other 3 games they put out, I would say only one of them is really excellent. The other 2 are just okay. So I wouldn't say their track record is that excellent, but I think that the more.
So are we saying that Miss Walker making an excellent game? That's the surprise, or are we saying Miss Walker?
The surprise to me, the surprise that this is nominated for is the fact it's a dual thing, I suppose. It's the fact that they created an interesting, different take on the RPG genre for the mobile, designed for the mobile, not just ported to, and it was successful and good. Successful as in successful in a money and download and people playing it sense, but also successful in the sense of it was successful, it was good.
I mean, I don't know. I can make that same argument for like if insert like The World Ends With You. Like they designed it so
it's just a fucking port though. It's not designed. It's not designed for the whole thing of Terra Battle is this is why when they say console port, I don't get it because that the way that game is.
I mean, let's say the DS. Let's say hypothetically, let's say the DS never released.
It would work.
That game could have come out and it was designed for the mobile. That's like the point I'm making. Like it doesn't matter. It's a fucking port.
We might just have to do a tie because neither side's gonna back down.
No, I'm just saying both sides of the argument suck. Like both sides are giving shitty arguments.
Yeah. And they're not gonna
Simon's like the captain here.
We're gonna
Jesus.
keep throwing out shitty arguments.
We can all agree that these are. We can all agree that these are both surprises, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's a compounded surprise of the fact that it came out. They're both. That's the thing is that both Terra Battle and Valkyria Chronicles on the PC are huge surprises in almost the kind of the same way. They started off differently, but the fact that both were such a big success upon their release,
well, we've been deadlocked for a good 20 minutes, so I think.
Yeah. I mean, who expects us to spend this much time on Surprise of the Year?
This is one of the this is the one category where we can actually, I think.
This is our big fluffy letter to Nomura. That's what it is.
Be fluffy with it.
Definitely not Nomura. I don't give a shit about Nomura.
I think this is the one category where we can afford to be fluffy with it and say, yeah, okay, we'll give it to both of them. Since there is evidently no damn.
It's because of Adam.
Budget.
Fuck you, Adam.
Traitor. Gallia will remember your treachery.
Fuck, mate. Let's move on.
Fine.
How much would you guys hate me if I decided I wanted to change my mind?
Oh.
We'll
be arguing even more than
It's too late. It's too late. It's too late. It's locked into the spreadsheet. We've only got one more. We've only got one more to go, so let's do it. Yeah. Zach.
All right. So, the next one, might as well move on to it. One to watch. The one to watch, as in the
most anticipated.
our most anticipated RPG of 2015. Although to be fair,
I mean the list that we've got isn't just 2015. It's
yeah,
more,
I was gonna say
it's more the game that we are most interested in after the events of this year. That could be demos of that game. That could be other things the company's done. On that list, we have The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt. We have Persona 5. We have Bravely Second. We have Torment Tides of Numera, or whatever. That is really botched, that name on the spreadsheet. Like that. We have Torment Tides of Numera, yes.
Torment.
We have Final Fantasy 15. We have Bloodborne. We have Kingdom Come Deliverance. We have Fable Legends, Tales of Zestria, and Mass Effect, whatever it's going to be.
Can we cross out FF15 just because we don't even have a release date for this piece of shit?
Well, you know, like I say, the whole point of this is more our most anticipated based on this year's events. So it isn't necessarily that this is a game that's coming out next year. It's more that, after all the stuff they've shown about
Xenoblade isn't on that list.
After all the stuff they've shown of that game this year, now we think it's one to watch. So that's the logic behind the category. For instance, Mass Effect is really on there purely because of being off the back of, one, the cool stuff they've shown at Comic Cons, and two, how excellent Dragon Age is. Suddenly, that game becomes a lot more exciting.
I mean, by that same token, I guess I want to put Deus 6 on there, right? I mean,
well, it depends. Do you feel like something's happened with Deus Ex this year?
No,
I don't feel like
they just put out an engine screenshot.
Yes. Whereas
that's the most recent thing.
On that note, like, what about Persona 5? You know, it's a game that a lot of people are looking forward to, but we literally know nothing about it. Does that make it
exciting?
I think for that exact reason, though, because we know so little. And to be honest, I think Mass Effect deserves an honourable mention because, yes, Dragon Age has proved that BioWare can deliver a good quality RPG of their usual pedigree on DICE's Frostbite engine, and also it's just got a lovely direction and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think Mass Effect belongs because we don't know enough yet, and I don't think Persona belongs either for the same reason.
I agree.
Who's replacing Shepard? Yeah, that's part of it too.
So we can cut those two.
You can cut Kingdom Come. I think it's a fantastic looking game. It's going to try to do the whole medieval stuff without the magic and dragons and stuff like that. But I need to play more of that game. I've only touched it on the surface. So.
Did you mention Bloodborne on there?
Yes.
I've got to play that at PlayStation Experience, and that was fun.
I think out of all the games we've seen so far, that one's the one we've seen the most footage of, right?
Yes. But that's not necessarily the category, obviously.
No, it's not. But
no.
I think it
we've watched the most.
Worthy to note that this game has come along a long way, and from what we've seen, there's a lot to be excited about, and they're doing interesting things now, especially with the newly announced unique dungeons, I guess.
The Chalice dungeon, as it were.
Like I think there's a lot of subtle things they're doing with that game.
Yeah, so the Chalice dungeon is what? It's like a randomly generated dungeon that you can do in co-op, so that's kind of new to that.
And you have like certain objectives,
So that's new to and there's like puzzles and enemies and things like that. You have to work in tandem, so that's kind of a new thing they're throwing into that Souls,
Soul mix.
Yeah.
The soul of that Souls.
I think that Torment can go. I think it looks really cool, but I don't think it's top tier material. Excuse me. I want to give a little shout out to Fable Legends, because I'm really curious about how that game's going to turn out, because I played it at Gamescom and mechanically it's fun, but co-op is not what I want from Fable, so it's like that to me is one to watch, but more one to watch in the sense of, is it going to suck?
Yeah.
Rather than
not the most interesting one to watch.
It's been a while without Molyneux and all that.
But it's not the lack of him. It's more just that I'm worried about the co-op stuff. But either way, so I think I brought Fable up and immediately cut it. Torment.
Shout out to Disgaea 5. I didn't include that, by the way.
Yeah.
I think I'm very excited
What
for
about
that one.
Zelda? Are we counting that in here or no?
I would say let's keep it to the pure RPGs.
Okay, sure.
That'll be talked about in the future.
I think Witcher 3, I think that has enough merit to perhaps be in our top 3 because
yes.
This is like the most ambitious thing that CD Projekt, their ambition behind this is almost
insane.
It's insane. I guess some way to put it. Like they're saying how huge it's going to be and how it's kind of like going to be their magnum opus. And not only that, but on the other hand, it just got delayed. There's been some murmurs about, because of their ambition, some development issues. So it's curious. Like I think Witcher 2 is pretty well received, and so a lot of people are looking forward to Witcher 3. But is it going to be able to follow it up?
I think I'm most anticipated from every time I've seen that game played in front of me. I've just been so excited to finally get my hands on it. I mean, I was bummed out by the delay, but the reasons they gave, like just all the games this past year were all broke. All the big games were broken, so I totally see why they would do it.
I think also it's shocking that game's coming from an independent studio. I think absolutely The Witcher is in our top 3 for this.
Yes,
exactly.
So when you remove that from the equation because of that, that leaves you with Bravely Second, Final Fantasy 15, Bloodborne, Tales of Zestiria.
Cut that. I don't think Tales of Zestiria is doing anything interesting, that the series hasn't.
The characters look boring.
I don't think it's doing anything that the series hasn't done, several times before, and at least nothing significant. So
it's got a cool anime coming, though.
I'll say this: I do think, to be honest, as interested as I am in Bravely Second after how good the first was, I do think if to me, if I look at this list, Witcher and Bloodborne are probably the obvious shoo-ins for the top 3.
And it's hard to cut out Final Fantasy 15.
And then that leaves Final Fantasy 15 and Bravely Second. And here's what
we cut Persona a while ago.
I just don't think Persona can.
That's true. We need to know more.
When we know so little.
Well, it's going to be the one to watch next year because it's going to be out in 2016 in America.
They announced 2015, didn't they?
Then again,
they did, but who knows?
Well, like probably December 2015.
That's all we do know about the game.
But I would assume that not many people would disagree with this. But Final Fantasy 15 deserves to be in the top 3. I mean, we're finally seeing at least some of the game. It's finally like we're getting a demo next year. There's Nomura was
that is a good point. We will, one way or another, be playing this game next year.
But is it the one to watch? I guess it is.
Well, I think there's a number of reasons why the game deserves to be in the top 3. I'm not convinced it deserves to win, but but in terms of being in the top 3, it is a game that's going to determine the long-term future of one of the largest Japanese RPG franchise. Nomura's been removed from it.
What about Pokemon?
It's testing. Well, okay.
Okay, I'm kidding. Let's keep going.
It's testing the waters for a new style of game. Nomura's been removed. All that kind of stuff. Bravely Second is just a sequel to a really fucking good game. In terms of being one to watch, I think Final Fantasy 15 is more interesting. Basically, is what I'm saying.
I'd put it up there. I mean, obviously, it's like, well, I do the whole wait and see approach, but it's of course I'm very interested in seeing what becomes of that. So yes, I'll put that up there for sure.
I can't deny that I'm gonna love watching what happens with Final Fantasy 15, regardless if it turns out to be the best RPG ever or if it crashes and burns horribly and Square Enix goes out of business.
I think that's a very good point.
The biggest surprise.
Like, I think if Witcher 3 disappoints, it's still a disappointment. But like, if Final Fantasy 15 disappoints on any significant level, that could be. I think that's more.
It could have huge scale repercussions. I mean,
they said it's like the future of the franchise in question.
It's not going to bankrupt the company, but it will change the direction of that series significantly. I mean, you
mean smaller teams? That'd be amazing because that's what they've been talking about.
I mean, Erin, do you have any particular thoughts on this as the resident Final Fantasy 15 person?
Well, considering 15 is so far away, I don't I don't think I would really vote for it, but I don't know. Like, my thought is everything they're showing us is basically just everything they actually have done in the game right now. And to me, that just says that, oh, well, I mean, what were you guys doing for so long, you know?
What we got?
So, I mean, the fact that the demo is, it's definitely not coming out in March. So, I mean, anybody who expects that, well, I don't really know what to say. But, I mean, it will be out sometime next year, and whether or not Square Enix finally tells us when, sometime soon, I mean, that's another question altogether. But, I mean, I don't know. I'm still kind of iffy about that one for sure, just because if the demo is out this year, like later this year, and the full game's not out until who knows when, then, I mean, there's other games to be playing in the meantime. I mean, in regards to Final Fantasy, I'm actually the most excited for the Final Fantasy 14 expansion, Heaven's Ward, because it looks pretty good. And 14 has been like the best Final Fantasy to come along in a long time, so I'm definitely probably most excited for that out of anything for at least early next year.
Oh yeah, that's true. All the stuff that they're adding, like your own airships and stuff like that,
I would agree with Aaron in regards to at least Final Fantasy 15. That's like literally exactly how I feel about it.
I think what Aaron has said indicates that it doesn't deserve to win. I do think it probably deserves to be in the top 3.
I
agree.
So, what are our top 3? We have Witcher 3, Bloodborne.
Liz, I want to hear Liz. Liz isn't anything.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Well, I don't really have an opinion on Final Fantasy 15 because I stopped caring about it a while ago. I haven't even been paying attention to the news. So I'm like, whatever. And I originally put Witcher 3 because it really does look like a great game. And even though I haven't played the first 2 games, like, I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the
I think they said you didn't have to play the first 2 either to play that one.
I think that's a fair point, though. Witcher 3 definitely seems to be, like, trying to go for, like, a wider scope in terms of, like, who it's trying to sell to. Like, I think Witcher 1 and Witcher 2, were more for, like, the really hardcore computer RPG fans. And, like, Witcher 3 is more... It's bigger scale, definitely. So
it's like The Witcher 3 until Cyberpunk 2077 becomes a thing, and then I'm going to be very excited about that. But for now, it's The Witcher 3 for sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like Witcher's the winner then.
I think it wins.
It's hard to beat it.
Yeah, and
Bloodborne, I think Bloodborne is as cool as it is. It's another Souls game with guns and no blocking, just pure rolling. So
I think it's gonna be a surefire great game, but
yeah,
Witcher 3 is gonna change things.
It means a lot to that genre.
It might. We'll have to see there.
Yeah,
I mean,
seeing like
never say never. It could just
Terra Battle's gonna change things. Witcher 3 too.
But the difference is Terra Battle's already out and is already good. Witcher could come out and could end up being terrible. I doubt it, but you never know.
Well, that's why we're watching it.
That's the fear, but they're obviously putting time into it.
Yeah, they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, so we got The Witcher 3 wins, and then Bloodborne and Final Fantasy 15 are runner-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That sounds good.
Can't argue that.
All right.
I have a feeling. So Final Fantasy 15 is probably going to be in this category next year too, right?
It's going to depend.
It depends.
2 years. 2 years. What happens is that 2 years after a system launch, it's going to be huge. Like with the games that they're going to announce next E3, you got level 5s, new RPG is going to be announced, and so there's so many things that could happen. So we'll have to wait and see.
And if we actually play the demo, we might find out it sucks prematurely, or it's really good.
This time next year, you're probably just going to be listening to me ranting about Mass Effect. So
there we go. That's probably going to be it. Or Star Wars Battlefront. It's going to be a huge RPG with the writer from Uncharted.
Fuck that bullshit. I'm going to say something now that won't be very popular with a lot of people, but Star Wars Battlefront always sucked. They've never been good games.
I agree. I completely agree.
They've always been slightly crappy shooters, and I don't know why people want a new one.
It's a difficult game to follow, but
people want crappy games all the time. We have people playing Madden every year, right?
In fairness, they're not bad games if you like football.
They're not bad.
I'm sure Battlefront isn't bad if you like Star Wars.
I mean, we also have people like Zach liking Misa games too.
They're pretty great.
Music games.
Neptunia Victory. Neptunia Victory 2,
anime.
most anticipated game of 2015. No one's gonna agree with me though.
No.
I'll make a quintet. Best game of 2015.
We should have a Zach Reese anime girl game of the year.
There you go.
God damn it.
There's so many categories.
Maybe
Galgun.
his game will win then, finally.
Zach plays Galgun.
That's gonna be my game of the year.
Please,
Sorry.
no.
Zach Reese's kawaii game of the year.
We haven't gotten to RPG of the year yet. We have to wait and hold that for Activist Trip, so it's gonna come. I'll wait for that one.
Oh god.
So we're halfway done. Sort of.
Yeah. So we never.
Well, sort of halfway done because we never decided on Biggest Surprise.
Well, we got
indie RPG.
I'm not returning to that. It's a draw. But we will be
draw.
returning in a second cast to talk about the best small screen RPG, which includes mobile. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be.
Kind of why I was fighting it so much, because I was like, I know Terra Battle's going to win because I voted that one myself. So we'll see how that goes.
There's some real big competition in that category. There's things like Pokemon. There's things like
Default.
There's things like Bravely Default. There's things like Persona Q. There's even crazy things like Deus Ex: The Fall. So
now that is crazy.
I didn't play much of that game.
It's really good, to be fair.
I bought it. It was like $1. I was like, I bought it.
And then we've also got Indie RPG.
Ooh. I don't know how many indie RPGs you guys have played.
I know I've played more than most people here.
There's some good stuff on that list, but we'll see. And then there's Best Big Screen RPG, and then you're going to see stuff like Dragon Age and Dark Souls 2 and South Park and Diablo 3, even things like Child of Light and Disgaea and
Diablo 3. But it was not like a remaster. Is that going to qualify?
To be fair, the console versions were both this year.
Oh, it's the console.
Well,
okay.
I mean, yeah, but the ultimate
and the expansion.
Yeah, the ultimate edition in itself, I think, can count. But both console editions were this year anyway.
I voted. Yeah. South Park, of course.
So we will have to. I like how in the best big screen RPG, somebody's written. Do ports count? If so, Valkyria Chronicles. That fucking game.
that was
Suikoden 2. Voted for Suikoden 2.
I will literally argue that. I will go all for Suikoden 2 to win Game of the Year.
Oh, Jesus.
It's got a better story than every game we've talked about so far.
It's the best small screen, the best big screen, and the best overall.
It genuinely does make me wonder if, as much as I balked at it earlier when we were off air, if we should slide an additional best re-release / remaster category in there, because there are the Kingdom Hearts games. There's Valkyria. There's Final Fantasy X. There's was the
mobile games.
The 3D version of Final Fantasy After Years was this year, wasn't it? And things like that. So.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a little bit of a break now that we've gotten through some very heated discussions, and so yes, and the best is yet to come. And so after our break, we're going to be discussing best indie RPG, best small screen RPG, so handhelds and mobile. Yep. We'll see about that. And the best big screen RPG, so obviously consoles and PC and all that. And then finally, we're going to all bring it all back together and decide our best overall RPG of 2014. So don't want to miss any of it, so stick around.